few. Inside the Birds is back. Hello, welcome to the Inside the Birds live pregame show here at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook on Delaware Ave in Philly, where Philly loves a winner. I'm Jeff Mosher from Inside the Birds alongside my Inside the Birds co-host, Adam Kaplan. Back with us, as always, is our tape breakdown guru. His name is Greg Cosell. How you doing, Greg?
Jeff, it's Saturday, is it not?
It is Saturday.
A little weird. I'm just trying to remember what day it is.
It must be why Jason Avant is early today.
There you go.
Also with us is former Eagles wide receiver Jason Avant. Welcome to the show, Jason.
Good to see you guys. Let's get it going.
Let's get it going.
Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year again.
That's right. We haven't been together since the New Year.
That's correct. So I hope everybody had a great New Year. It is Saturday, as Greg mentioned, so we're all on short rest. And we've got an Eagles-Cowboys season finale to break down here. That's not your typical Eagles-Cowboys game. There's not much on the line as far as playoff seeding, a little bit of wiggle room, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So instead of sitting here breaking down backups versus backups all day long, which we might get, we are going to talk about the Eagles season. We're going to look ahead to the playoffs a little bit. We will get into just Eagles-Cowboys a little bit, but we will also talk about the Eagles as they currently sit, making the playoffs under first-year head coach Nick Sirianni, and we're going to give the whole synopsis of the team for you over the next 2 hours. We are here at Jack's Bar and Grill, as we always are. The Eagles are trying to win their 5th straight game, and a win today would even their home record. They have not been a good home team this year compared to the road, but they have a chance to even their record. So if you're coming down, do it. We're here at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook. Catch the game, leather seats, great drinks, great food specials, and also do us a solid, give us a like, give us a share, a retweet, whatever it takes to make Inside the Birds pregame live the most watched pregame show on a Saturday. Also, we are going to give you a chance. We're going to tell you how you can win 3 tickets to today's game, this season finale from the Eagles against the Cowboys. And if you go, make sure you bring gloves, hat, hand warmers. I had to put air in my tires this morning at the convenience store, and I could barely hold the thing.
Probably told you that you needed air in your tires.
Yeah, that's exactly what
happened. That happens when it gets cold, you know?
It does, all 4. So I had the little, the shaking hand there as I was trying to inflate the tires. All right, let us start. We've got some semi-big news, and I've already alluded to it. This is not going to have the look of a normal Eagles-Cowboys regular season game. What we're hearing is it's going to have the feel of a preseason game, maybe the first or second. Some starters are going to play today, probably a quarter, and at some point our coaches are going to decide, as we understand it, when to get the guys out. Now, obviously, any starter who's been nursing an injury, we've talked about Lane Johnson, who's been on the injury report all week, probably not going to play.
He didn't practice. So
he didn't practice, right.
He won't play.
So not all starters are going to play.
Knee?
Yeah, Lane Johnson has a knee, although they did wind up putting rest on all week long, as in if that's part of the injury report. You're going to rest him. Well, if you have a knee, of course you rest. All right, if you're not practicing because of a knee, either way. So we will see some starters, and we'll talk about that. I would imagine we'll see Gardner Minshew, although it's a good discussion on if you're not going to play much or any of your starting quarterback, given the importance and value of the backup quarterback to the Eagles. And in today's game, does it even make sense to play the backup quarterback with what's at stake in the playoffs? We'll talk about that a little bit as well. Jay, I wanted to kind of start off along these lines and ask you, as a player, you've been in this situation before. You're a starter or you're a veteran player. The rest versus the results on the final week of the regular season. Are you a proponent of just resting guys? Is that the way to go? Do you like playing them a little bit and pulling them, or do you think everybody should play? Where do you feel?
It depends on the team and the scenario. Usually more veteran teams usually have a better record, and if you look at, those Patriots teams, Chiefs teams, the Eagles historically back when they were doing they were, winning the NFC East pretty much every year, those teams were prepared for for a bye week in the first round and be ready for the 3 remaining games. This team has a lot to improve upon because we haven't beat a team over 500 this entire season, right? So there is some validity to still playing some of your starters. The guys like Herbig, any of the backup offensive linemen, young receivers should play. It only helps them. So in this situation, I think a few guys should play.
Mm-hmm.
Not the guys that you know that are veteran and may need the rest, but there definitely should be some younger guys that are playing.
This is an interesting roster because it's hard to say whether they're a veteran team or a young team. It almost depends on the position.
Yeah.
They're an interesting mix of guys who are in their first contract and third or longer. There's not a whole lot of second contract guys on the field. So you almost don't know whether you treat it like you said, the young team that's been there, because some of these guys have won a Super Bowl, but then a lot of these guys have never even played in a playoff game.
And if you look at it from Sirianni's perspective, you're going to look at it and say, hey, we've started slow for the past few games. Let's come out and at least try to prove that.
Right.
So you're trying to get some momentum going into the playoffs. And usually, just in general, with younger teams that are fighting to get in the playoffs like the Eagles have had, usually this game means a lot more in week 17, 18, whatever it is now. It means a lot more. So going into, you don't want to lose that momentum.
Right.
And I got a feeling we will lose that momentum, but we'll see.
Adam, Greg, I mean, you guys talk to a lot of different personnel and coaches. I mean, I imagine that you get different opinion on it.
My sense is, although I thought Jay made a really interesting point, because I think the narrative in many ways has already been set with the Eagles. If they lose in the first round in the playoffs, people are just going to say, well, they didn't beat anybody, so they really weren't a playoff-worthy team to begin with. That's going to be the narrative.
Sure.
It's already written, as you know. But
yeah, I wrote it.
I think that ultimately coaches tend to think more in terms of resting players.
Yeah.
I mean, do they want to play them? Of course they do. But just think what happens, and I don't know if Jalen Hurts even takes a snap tonight, but just think if Jalen Hurts were to play tonight, and obviously he's been nursing an ankle injury, because he was not a full participant of practice this week.
No, he was later he
later
actually
in the
was,
week,
yes.
right. And obviously he's okay. Like if tonight's game really meant something, he'd be full go.
Right.
But I think that the feeling would probably be with players like that, important players, that the risk factor is too great.
Right, right. Adam, what do you expect, just in general?
I would expect some of the starters to play a series or two. Mm-hmm. In fact, I know from talking to coaches over the years, they'll go, okay, do we see what we need to see? A good series, a crisp series. If you did, pull everybody. No, you only have 47 spots on game day. You can't bench everybody.
Right.
Some of the starters are going to have to play.
right.
Yeah. But you don't want to risk more than you need to. Get some timing down, and that's it.
Yeah. I've almost felt that this was a tougher decision for teams that had that first seed, and you get that bye. So you really get 2 weeks if you're not going to play guys in the season finale, where you might lose that momentum and you might just sit around. So I almost thought it was a more difficult decision for those coaches. I guess like maybe Andy Reid in the AFC here, and then obviously Matt LaFleur with the Packers if they get the top seed.
Well, they have the top seed.
They have the top seed, right?
But it's weird.
The Chiefs theoretically could still get the top seed.
So,
because they win today and Tennessee loses to Houston tomorrow, then the Chiefs are the number one seed in the AFC. So, look, it's a tough call, and different coaches see it differently, but the last thing you want is a really important player to not then be able to play in the playoffs.
Right.
I could go back to 2009, right? So the Patriots had the number one seed clinched and a bye. They rested Randy Moss. They played Wes Welker. Welker tears his ACL at Houston on the turf.
Correct.
And that's the risk that you run for timing and rhythm and getting momentum. Personally, I wouldn't do it. I wouldn't play any of these guys, but again...
You mean you wouldn't play any of the important guys?
Yeah,
like
I just
said, some guys have
and
to play.
as you know, Welker was super important because he's the NFL's best slot receiver.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now with Hurts, I'd like to get some timing down, but it's so hard to quantify.
But
Jason,
here's the
what
question,
does it mean?
and Jay could answer this better than I. If Hurts plays 2 series, is that really going to dramatically change anything with the timing
That's
of
what
their
I mean.
pass game?
Right.
If they come out and throw it every single time, it can help them.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Right,
they come out and drop
right.
back and throw it every single time against coverage.
That's the point.
They also put him in more risk getting hurt doing that,
Yeah,
right?
you do.
Especially if the offensive line is not.
Can it
intact.
help him? Yes, it can help him. Ultimately, is it worth it for a guy like Hurts? Now, I'm not talking about Hurts. I don't necessarily know about the quarterback, but I know, Jalen Reagor can use it.
Yes.
I know Quez Watkins can use it. I know some backup offensive linemen can use it. I know that, Zach McPherson, he can use it. Like, there's guys that can use it.
Right.
Epps can use it. There's a bunch of guys
Kenny
that
Gainwell,
can.
you can play him a lot.
can play him. Like, there's a lot of guys that can use it.
I mean, look, someone like McPherson.
But Hurts, I don't know.
Someone like McPherson, to me, because he seems to be the #1 backup at corner, correct?
Yeah.
Outside,
Yes,
yeah.
outside.
Right,
Yeah.
outside.
Yeah.
So it seems to me he should play every snap tonight.
Yeah, I have the feeling that you'll
Yeah.
see a lot of Zach McPherson today.
Yeah, I mean,
because he's
because-
one of those guys where it's not a decision; you just have the
No,
opportunity.
because he
to
could
pay.
end up having to play
Right.
next week if someone gets hurt.
Absolutely.
And you want him to feel like, well, it's the coaching staff too, not only the player,
Right.
but the coaching staff, and you know this, they have to feel trust in a player to be able to call the kind of game that they want to call.
Sure.
You know, I remember having conversations with coaches all through the years, okay, just as an aside, but it kind of fits what we're talking about. And because so many coaches have been fortunate to come and watch tape with me at NFL Films through the years, and there'd always been a lot of talk about positions. What are premium positions in the NFL? Oh, you can get a safety anywhere. Oh, you can get this guy anywhere. And then I would talk to coaches, and they'd say to me, you know what? If my safeties aren't any good, there's a part of my playbook I can't run because I don't feel comfortable running that.
Right.
If I don't trust the players that are out there, then there's a part of my playbook I can't run. So then my defense becomes more vanilla, easier for the offense to figure out. It becomes more predictable. So this whole thing, which is, this happens at draft time more than ever, is when the draft gurus start with, well, that's not an important position. Well, you might want to talk to coaches.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
they kind of think this stuff's important.
Yeah.
Because they can't do what they want to do.
I hope the Eagles are listening to this conversation.
Yeah.
You brought up
Ah,
safety.
safety. Oh, man.
Yeah,
Get
but you
him
know
on
what I'm
safety.
saying.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
do know what you're saying.
because for
I know what
years
you're
people said, oh, you can get a safety in the 5th round.
Right.
But the league has changed now. There's
yeah, but,
great
you know,
importance
yeah.
to it.
Absolutely.
Especially if they could
So,
cover.
so real quick on that quarterback situation, because I think it's a really valid question. The backup quarterback is really important, not just to the Eagles, but in this league. And it's easy to say, just play Gardner Minshew today, but you may need Gardner Minshew if Jalen Hurts gets hurt in the playoffs. So does it even make sense
Right.
to get Gardner on the field today instead of just saying, hey, Reed Sinnett, it's your game?
I would play Gardner because Gardner does a great job getting ball out of his hands. He's
He
not
does.
a guy that's going to anticipate and hold. He reminds me of Derek Anderson a little bit, where the ball is going to be out really, really quick. So I don't anticipate that being a bad thing of playing him, just because I think he can protect himself with his natural progression. He will get stuck at times, but if it's somewhere, if it's a play to be made, he's going to get it out.
All right. Well, we will see the plan of attack today for both the Eagles and the Cowboys. We know also that the COVID-19 list and other injuries are going to influence decisions as well. In fact, they already have. The Cowboys have not taken some players with them on this trip.
Micah Parsons.
Like Micah Parsons.
And I know Jaron Curse is out.
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah.
I know Trayvon Diggs is out.
And the funny thing is, those guys had opportunities because of the new revised protocols to theoretically come back, but the coach just basically said, no, you're not coming. So it makes, obviously, you see how both of these coaches are going to start to treat this game. So let's get into who's in and who's out from an Eagles standpoint, and we have a lot to talk about with their running game. But as we sit here now, Adam, let's clear this up.
Yeah.
Things can change before the game. Kickoff
Yes.
today is at what?
8:15.
8:15.
And they have till 4 p.m. Eastern, both teams, to make any roster moves. So
That
theoretically,
includes COVID people?
yes, this is exactly what we're going to get to. So guys like Boston Scott, Jordan Howard, though I can't imagine he would play. It would make no sense to risk anything. Dallas Goedert, Jack Stoll on the COVID list. Nate Herberg on the COVID list. So those guys could theoretically come off on the offensive side of the football and be available if they need them for the game. Now, Fletcher Cox, do you really need to play him? Alex Singleton. That could go back and forth. Jernard Avery, Avonte Maddox, Roddy McLeod, Marcus Epps, all also on the COVID list on defense. So they could theoretically be off by 4 p.m. Eastern.
Interesting, very interesting. All right, well, as we talked about with the other guys, Jalen Hurts was not designated for injury, correct? On the final injury report?
He is.
Oh, he is? Okay, he is.
No, okay. It's still ankle, but yes, he does not have a designation.
He does not have an
Correct,
injury
yes.
designation for the game. So, anyway, it's my understanding that you're going to see Gardner Minshew play this game and then maybe give way or just play the whole game. I'm not sure we're going to see Jalen Hurts today. My sense is that we are not going to see him at all.
If he plays, I would guarantee you will not be more than 2 series, and it could even be 1 if he looks good.
Yeah.
See, there's a give and take. We just talked about the reason why you would play him. Mm-hmm. But as Jason talked about, unless you're going to throw, what's the point of having him in there
To hand off.
It
Right.
makes no sense.
Plus,
to
you
me.
have a
Because
offensive
you don't want to
line.
run them on read options and design quarterback runs. You don't
Yeah,
want to
get him
do that.
hurt, right?
Yeah.
Get contact.
Yeah.
What's the point?
My strong sense is he's not going to play
I
at
would
all,
agree with
but
that.
we'll see.
Okay.
Let's talk. We went through all the COVID list names there. And again, we'll have to see who comes back. It's very possible that a lot of the guys that we just mentioned are going to come back and play, but we'll have to see. It sounds like today will be a big Kenny Gainwell game. Obviously, with Miles Sanders, we know is out. Jordan Howard has been nursing the shoulder injury, and Kenneth Gainwell is healthy and ready to go. So we will see him get, and it'll be interesting to see if they elevate anybody else before
I
the
would
game.
think both Huntley and Johnson would be elevated.
Kerryon Johnson, right?
Yes, Kerryon Johnson. If Boston Scott and Howard are not able to play, because you need to have 3 running back for a game.
Right.
And again, you could go player for play. You can go, because remember, they still have 11 players on the COVID list. So you've got 11 move theoretically that don't count against your roster.
Right.
So they can do that.
All right, so some backups who we expect to see extended time. Tyree Jackson, John Hightower will probably get some good run today.
Yep.
Cameron Malvo, who's already been seeing some time.
He's been playing meaningful time.
He has been. Interesting story on him.
Yeah, go ahead. So you let everyone know you had a chance to talk to him.
Yeah, he did his press conference with the media this week, and he just talked about being a late bloomer. This is the 6th team that he's been on. It's when the Eagles bring in a guy you haven't heard much of, you think that he's younger and maybe just off somebody's practice squad. He's 28 years old, and he had a chance probably 2 or 3 times to say, that's it for me. I've been bouncing around from practice squad to practice squad, but he has stuck with it. As you see now, he's playing a decent amount. He's got good size to him, good length.
He looks the
length
part.
to him, and he's probably going to play in his first playoff game next week. So very interesting story for Cam Malvo. I said he reminds me a little bit of the Steven Means, just a guy who's got a good motor, tries hard, people know in practice.
He's a big kid.
Oh, he threw the shot put in. Remember he said on your question to him, he was a 2-sport athlete in high school. Well, with football, yes, but he also threw the shot put.
That is correct. So we know he's a good athlete, and he's getting a chance. He wears number 59, by the way, in case you're wondering, because I knew I was running.
Someone said Mike Mamolo on Twitter. I thought it was funny.
I had to run to the roster the other day. I'm like, I know that's not Jannard Avery. Who's 58.
We're going to get Mike on in the spring for our draft coverage. But you were a 2-sport athlete in high school, right?
I was.
Soccer and chess?
Yeah. He was a 2-sport athlete?
Well, my high school didn't have a football team because not many high schools in New York City.
You were really all city in baseball. Is that true? Or basketball?
Both.
Both? Really?
Yeah.
How many teams were in there? 4?
The hate.
Must have been a small city. What's that city called?
Both. I was the
New York?
all-city shortstop in baseball.
Wow.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's hard to believe.
All right, Cowboys
It's
injuries.
hard to believe.
He did have a sweet J, though. I'll say this much. He did have.
He's hating over here.
I know.
I'll say this,
hard to
though.
believe.
In all seriousness, as much as I could be serious with him here, he has a picture in his office at NFL
Playing in
Films.
college basketball. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful jumper. It looked like Set Shot Buford. You look pretty good.
Set Shot
Boy, these age show. You're getting
Wow.
started.
The fish that saved Pittsburgh for those of you over 50.
You ain't the youngest dude on this panel yet.
I know.
All right, just making sure you knew that.
Well, it was pretty, I did have a pretty
did.
good looking
Sweet Jack,
jumper,
you
though.
did.
I
You
did.
did.
No question.
All right, Cowboy injuries. Now, Greg already broke half the news before. They are not traveling with Micah Parsons.
right.
They are not traveling with J-Ron Curse, the safety. They're not traveling with, who is that third person that they said?
Diggs is not going.
Is out. Yep.
Trayvon Diggs, the
Yep,
cornerback, who's had a pretty decent year.
Tony Pollard's also.
Tony Pollard.
He was downgraded late yesterday.
Yep.
Right. Ezekiel Elliott is on. He's going to play, actually, right?
He's available,
available
to play.
to play.
He has no injury designation.
Who's
with
their
that
next
knee.
back?
Well, Pollard's not going to play, so it'll be, guess what? Our old friend, Super Bowl hero.
Oh, Corey Clement.
Yeah.
Corey Clement
Yeah, Corey
back
was
into
there.
town.
Yeah.
We'll probably get the
Looks
majority.
pretty good, by the way.
Wendell Smallwood, Corey
Corey
Clement.
Clement.
Yeah, he works hard. Glassboro kid, Glassboro.
Yeah,
Now,
that's
has
right.
he been on? He's got to sign with Washington to complete the NFC East sweep, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because Corey
Was with
Clement
the
was on the
Giants.
Giants.
Yeah,
He's been
that's
with the
right.
Eagles, and
That's
now
right.
he's on the Cowboys.
Blocked the
All
punt,
right.
too, a couple weeks ago.
That's right.
And then Alfred Morris someday has to be an Eagle, so he can also complete the NFC East sweep. Let's talk about their defense. Missing a lot of guys from the COVID list. Osa Odigizua, did I pronounce that right?
Odigizua,
right.
Odigizua.
Yep.
Tristan
UCLA,
Hill.
right?
So he's not playing?
He's on the COVID
COVID, yep,
list. Remember,
yep.
these guys could come off
Yeah.
at any second.
Because they need people, too, to play.
They're down
I mean,
3D tackles, right?
Yeah.
Tristan Hill,
Right.
former second rounder, and Bohanna, who probably would have played a ton. He's also on the COVID list. Keanu O'Neal's on the COVID list.
Yep.
Parsons is out, now coming here to Philly.
Right.
Anthony Brown, who's one of their top 3 corners, is out on the COVID list. Diggs was downgraded out. He's definitely not playing. Jordan Lewis is also on the COVID list. Donovan Wilson has an illness. We know how that could turn into the COVID
Right.
virus.
Yeah.
Jaron Curse is out with a hamstring injury. And Malik Hooker, who probably would have played a lot in this game, he's on the COVID list. So They're running out of players on defense, so expect some call-ups today.
So how does that work? Do they go and do they have a COVID plane? How does that
I think
work?
that's why most of them aren't traveling.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
They have a COVID
They
plane.
guys
Separate
travel.
guys.
They travel
Ben
separately.
Roethlisberger traveled separately for that
my
Sunday night
gosh.
game at the Chargers.
Yes, they travel separately.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, the COVID plane. Yeah, I'm taking the COVID plane this week.
So the Eagles did activate Jason Kelce from the
They did,
COVID list
yes.
on Friday.
Yes.
Don't know if he'll play or not. He does have a streak going on. I wrote down the number, and now I can't find it, but it's a
All
long
he needs to do is
streak.
play one snap.
Yeah.
So
Start
does
one
Jason Kelce strike? I'm just curious. Does Kelce strike you as the guy who's going to play one snap just to keep a streak alive? Because I feel like he doesn't play that kind of game.
But explain. You brought this conspiracy up, and I think it's interesting.
Series, he gonna play.
He's going to play.
He's
the
gonna
snap.
play.
I would think he's going to play
Well,
a series.
if Hurts
Right,
plays,
right.
he should definitely play, right? If
Well-
they have Hurts active, why wouldn't you have?
Kelsey's going to play a snap
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
You think so?
And maybe
Yeah, I
Hurts
do.
is out there on
All
the
right,
snap.
then if Kelce plays, I would imagine he plays a series or however
He
long
might play
they
one
decide.
snap. That's all he needs.
Right.
I would bet my life he does not play one snap and come out. I just don't think he's that kind of guy. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Okay.
But I don't see that happening.
Wait a minute. You wanted to bet
Because
your
that-
life for
when
a
you do
second.
that-
Now you might be wrong.
When you do that, I know I might have to give up my life. No,
Two things could be right.
when you do that, you basically say I'm doing that just to keep a streak alive. And I feel
I
like
hear you.
he is not that type of guy. I could be wrong.
Yeah,
We'll see.
And when you see that streak in 5 years, is anybody going to remember that?
Ask Cal
not.
Ripken.
Well, that was a different one.
I'm just kidding. I'm
Harold
kidding.
Carmichael was the only one that I could remember.
Eli Manning, I believe, had a very long starting streak.
He did.
Yep.
Then he
that
got
was
benched.
intact, and then he got benched.
Yeah, it
right,
was
and they made a big
bench.
deal of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. He got benched by Ben McAdoo.
So this is where we could see Jack Anderson playing center or guard who
Yep.
had an illness. He's a guy that could take a look at. And this is what this game is about. You mentioned some of those guys on defense. Tay Gallen, who was in the Ertz trade. You'll
Yep.
take a look at him. Kerry Vincent. Jacoby Stevens. What I found interesting about him was they elevated him super early this week,
Yes.
which tells you he's going to get a big
Well,
look.
they don't have too many functional linebackers who can go out and play. In fact, we talked about that on the podcast. If you were going to give Singleton and T.J. Edwards maybe a series or two and pull them out, who are you putting in there? You
Still
don't
have
have
a lot of
Davion
linebackers.
Taylor.
Right.
You've already released Eric Wilson. I'm trying to think of another backup. Oh, Sean Bradley has been injured,
Yeah.
so he may not be able to play. You really only have Jacoby Stevenson and who? And then
Stevens,
that's
yeah.
Stevens.
Yeah.
Who was
So
a
you may have
safety
to
in
be a little
college.
bit more creative with your nickel and dime packages.
Patrick
today.
Johnson's it will be their Sam. But
Yeah.
they
Right,
don't, they just
Patrick
don't have any linebackers.
Yeah, so you
You're
might
right.
see a little bit more creative nickel and dime packages just to compensate, which is good because then it gives you a chance to look at all those defensive backs that they brought in that you mentioned, Kerry Vincent and Tay Gowan and Josiah
You know,
Scott.
it's funny you say this because we were talking about. I remember we were doing our first couple shows of the season. We were talking about how vanilla Gannon was on defense in
And
preseason.
you'll probably see that tonight.
Exactly.
Yes.
So moving forward 4
Probably.
months, you're not going to show anything. You don't want to put
Well,
anything
it's
on
not
tape.
a matter of showing anything.
No, but you don't
The
want to give
guys
him
he
anything.
puts out there
Right.
Can't
probably
do
couldn't
anything.
handle it anyway.
Yeah.
You just don't want to give away anything that could be your game plan. But we know kind of what they are, what their identity is, which we'll get into later.
All right. Last but
A
not
lot of
least,
cover 2, cover 3.
Very vanilla. Yep.
last but not least, good chance to check out guys like
Invitation
Hightower,
to it.
Keyshawn Johnson, who was active from the COVID list, Deion Kane, the practice squad
I'd
wide
love to
receiver.
see him play today.
The Clemson receiver.
They love we were talking about this on
Wow.
the show Friday. He's a guy that was a superstar OTA guy in 18 with the Colts, and then he blew his knee out
Yep.
and never been the same.
And
unfortunately.
he's long, he's athletic.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people, I put myself in that category, that watched him coming out of Clemson and thought, not that he'd be a number one big time,
Yeah.
Jamar Chase receiver, but that he'd play in this league
Yeah.
and be a quality receiver.
Sure.
But it just hasn't worked out. Now, he had that major knee injury.
Right. All right, well, maybe a chance to see those guys today. I know everybody's been aching to see Deion Kane. Well, you may get the chance with him. And by the way, is it still Keyshawn Johnson? It's just
Yes,
not,
K-E-E,
not
Sean.
not the throw me the
Yes.
damn ball.
So is this
Keyshawn
a big
Johnson.
Arcega-Whiteside evening?
I would think
I
so.
think
He could be.
A lot of blocking.
No,
from
he
James
can ball today. JJ
Yeah.
messing around and have 100 yards today.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
never know.
Andre Dillard Day should play a lot
Look,
of
I
left
think of all
tackle
the
today.
guys, to be honest with you, because we're throwing names out, but all the guys that I think that would be fun to watch and see what they can do is the Tyree Jackson. I mean, he's a tight end. He made the team. He has an incredible story. He's 6'6". Goddard is still on the COVID list, and then,
Yep.
as I
So
understand it,
Stoll.
he's not going to play. Stoll is on the
Yeah.
list. He should get plenty of action today.
I would think Goddard wouldn't go even if he comes off the list.
Agreed.
Probably not.
He's
Probably
so
not.
important to everything they're
Yeah.
doing. Yep,
Right.
yep.
But Tyree Jackson is, if you're a fan and you're at the bottom of the roster and you're like, I don't know half these guys, at least Tyree Jackson is someone whose story you're probably familiar with, and you'd like to see him catch a few balls today.
And they have a bunch of tight ends. Togiai, we've talked about a lot, and obviously Richard Rodgers is still there.
Richard Rodgers. I can't imagine people are like, oh, I really want to see Richard Rodgers, but I mean,
he was important to them last
Hey,
year.
come on, he's got a mother. Come on.
He does.
His dad is a
dad's the
longtime
coach.
assistant coach. Wait, did Richard Senior coach at Carolina
when I
when you
was
were
in
there?
Carolina,
Nice
yeah.
man.
Oh, really? Yeah, Rock.
DBs, right?
No, he was a
Or
special teams coach when I was
Special
there.
teams coach, okay.
Yeah,
All right. All right, let's get into this team a little bit. I wanted to start off talking about Jalen Hurts, even though he's not going to play today, as I understand it. But let's talk
Sure about that? You seem convinced.
I'm getting a very strong sense.
All right,
Let's just say
all
that
right.
he's not going to play.
Okay.
His spidey sense is tingling.
It is. It is. So last Sunday was not a Picasso for the team in general. It was not a very pretty win. For the first time, first time in a while, they didn't run the ball the way they normally run the ball, which we're going to talk about a little later. But nonetheless, Hurts, 216 yards, 64% of his passes, 90 passer rating, and then he just managed to escape probably being out for the year, coming from within inches of having the railing and fans fall on him as he was leaving the field.
Yeah.
That's when you know. That's how you know the Eagles are winning the Super Bowl. By the way, when stuff like that happens, you know that everything's breaking their way. So the stat line itself may not be great, but I thought it was one of his better games as far as composure, but not just composure and leadership. He completed a lot of passes. Washington's defense came. They challenged the Eagles. It wasn't like the game 2 weeks ago. They didn't roll all over him. They asked Jalen Hurts to make some really significant throws, especially in the second half, and I thought he did. So I wanted to get your guys' impression off that game. I actually think it was one of his better games as a pro, just from my naked eye. But you guys watched the tape more.
I can agree with that just because I loved the ball placement this week. I thought that there were, I would say, 3 or 4 where his receivers let him down and not getting open. I can remember one important one when Devontae Smith had a deep over route, off coverage, off man coverage, and he doesn't win on that. It's certain things you just have to do. And but he still gave him a shot. He was putting the ball in positions that they could catch it, and so that's all. That's the only thing you can ask. He didn't put the ball in harm's way much. However, him as a player, I didn't have too much bad to say. I just didn't like that Nick Sirianni started off the game with too many passes again, and I think that's not always the strength of this team. Early in this game, it was just a passing show at times.
It's done the last couple games, so they're coming out passing.
Yeah, they're coming out passing away too much, which kind of takes away from the offensive line getting started quicker.
Well, let me ask you this question, because it's been a season-long debate, and I get what you're saying. You had the playoffs on the line. You had to win that game. But in an evaluation year for Jalen Hurts, when does Nick become allowed to throw a couple of passes in a row to see if the quarterback can handle what he's throwing at him? At the expense of maybe a slow start, which you've seen in the last few weeks.
Well, it's definitely been a slow start. I just think that yes, if you're in evaluation mode of Jalen to see, okay, if this is our quarterback for it, I don't have a problem. But to me, it's more about winning the game and let's doing what's most effective to win the football game. My team is fighting for the playoffs. Let me do that. Not necessarily, I'm not trying to evaluate a player at this point in time. I'm trying to get wins and play optimal and our best. Reach our potential. So
that would be your playoff recipe as well. You would say run the ball as much as you can, as frequently as you can.
100%. Yes, this team is not built for Jalen Hurts to throw the ball 30 times. It's just not. And I'm not coming against Jalen Hurts. It's just not built that way.
Clearly
to
they're
win.
not. You see their success.
Yeah. So 34 rushes for 118 yards. You take away 44 of those. Because that was Jalen Hurts running the ball.
Right.
So 3.5, we got to do a lot better job, and I think that has to do with the offensive line not, getting that initial push to start. You need more time to get revved up to see what's going on. That's what I think.
Okay. I mean, what do you guys feel on that?
Well, I think there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
Number one, I think he played very well last week. I liked the way Hurts played last week. I thought that he made some good throws within structure. I thought his ball placement was precise. I thought that he'll always make plays outside of structure, second reaction plays. That's a significant part of his game. And it at times compensates for and camouflages some of the passing limitations that we've talked about during the season. And I don't want to jump on your format here, Jeff, because I'm not sure where you're going.
No, don't worry.
But I think that they're going to be in the playoffs. We know that.
Yeah.
And running is their strength for sure.
Uh-huh.
But I will say this. I think back to last year with the Tennessee Titans. They go into the playoffs against the Baltimore Ravens. Derrick Henry gained 60 yards. The Ravens totally shut that down.
Mm-hmm.
They had nothing to do after that.
Right.
Because their pass game was totally dependent on their run game.
Right.
So at some point, and I'm not disagreeing with what Jay said. All I'm saying is at some point, it's likely, if they want to make a meaningful run in the playoffs, that the pass game is going to have to operate independently from the run game.
Sure.
That they're going to have to drop back and throw the ball.
Right.
Now,
Right.
Can they do that? I think that's probably an open question at this point. Would you agree with that?
Open
That's
question for a
probably
lot of reasons.
Right,
yeah.
for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
Maybe not just Jalen
Hurts.
Hurts.
No,
Right.
not just Hurts.
But that's an open question. But at some point, more than likely, if they want to make a deep run, which of course they do, they're going to have to throw the ball independently from running the football.
You mentioned the Titans last year, and I feel like that's really been the Titans' issue in their recent play. I mean, they had a lead on Kansas City a couple of years ago in the championship game, right? AFC Championship?
Yes.
Kansas City scored a bunch of points really quickly. Titans had to go into pass mode. Game was over. That's not how they're built, and that's not who they are.
And Tannehill is a better thrower than Jalen Hurts.
Yeah.
So, you know, at some point you're going to have to do that. Now, obviously last week was a game they had to win, as Jay said, and you play to win that given game in the moment.
Right.
And the run game is clearly their bread and butter on offense.
Right.
But at some point they're going to have to throw it without it working off the run game.
Because the schedule will be harder, obviously. We've talked on the show in recent weeks. Look at the schedule. They've done a good job of beating teams they should beat. When the schedule gets harder and you faced what they faced last week, where the run game wasn't very good, as Jason was talking about, they just didn't have it going on, can you throw to win? And we've asked that question all season. We saw they had to do it on that last drive. They came back. Okay, that's a positive. But Hurts has not been asked to carry the team yet.
Right.
And that's the part about his game we don't know. Now, you talk about Tannehill. The similarity is both quarterbacks need a run game. I think if the Titans would tell you that Tannehill works off the run game. He struggled when pressure was put on him in Miami. He would break down mentally. He put too much on himself, and he couldn't handle it. Hurts, we just don't know about because he's not been asked to do it.
Right.
Though last year we saw in the Arizona game was really the only true game where they got behind. He took a safety on the first series. He had to put the team on his back. He was really good in that game. That's really the one game where he had to throw. But that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
You don't know currently, as Jason just talked about, it's really a two-pass target offense. Let's call it like it is.
Yeah,
it's Goddard and
it is.
Smith.
Yeah.
They also could use another thing. They could use someone else to catch the football.
They could.
Someone else become a pass target here.
Yeah.
It's another issue.
Well, no, as Jay said, it's not all on Jalen Hurts.
Right.
There's like I said, a handful of times where guys have opportunities to get open, and teams and the Eagles are going to get the same thing because there's only one way to stop them running this league, especially for a team that runs the ball like the Eagles do, is to just add more people to the line of scrimmage, right? It's to add a guy to the pitch, add a guy to the quarterback, and usually that's 8 or 9 people that's figuring out a way to get in the box, right? The 9th guy is trying to figure out a way to get into the box quicker. So with that being said, you're going to have to deal with man coverage, and our receivers and tight ends are going to have to be able to beat it in order to make any type of run, and we haven't done that at a high level.
Just one thing with Jason on man coverage. Are they not getting off the jam? Like, what's been the issue?
Like, for an example, the deep over route is off coverage, outside leverage man. Devontae Smith, right side, running left, has an 18-yard over route. The guy's off. He runs the line. He goes up the field and just beelines it to his spot rather than running up. Oh, he's cutting me. Let me stop and start and look at him and go again. Like, just little
didn't try to
fine
sell him
things.
on any other route.
No, like if this is my thought. You run your route. If somebody starts to impede you or they begin to beat you to a spot, you control the pace. Stop. Slow down. Look at him. Make him second guess what you're doing and then go.
Right.
Just like little things like that, that a coach can look at it and say, let's do this. You can't just run and beat people in this league. It just doesn't happen very often.
Well, we'll see today if Devontae Smith, guys like Jalen Reagor get an opportunity against this Dallas defense, whatever Dallas is throwing out there, to work on some of these last things before the playoffs.
I mean, what we're ultimately saying is this profile in today's NFL a profile of a team to go deep in the playoffs and get into a Super Bowl? That's what we're ultimately saying.
Sure.
Because I think most would say now in today's NFL that if you're going to go deep in the playoffs, that your quarterback as a passer has to be the driving force.
Right.
That's what most would say.
And typically, if you're going to make a Super Bowl run, you have to be at least really good to great at at least one thing. The Eagles do one thing really well, is run the football well. Now, they didn't against Washington, and that's the question.
It was the first game in which their O-line, I thought,
I was
got
going to ask you
handled.
about that.
They got handled a bit in that game. It was the first game in a long time that their O-line kind of got handled physically.
When you say, they got moved?
Yeah.
Would you say they got moved?
They got mad. Payne and Allen.
Yeah, those guys inside for Washington are real.
Yeah.
Plus, they were mad at it. They came mad.
They were frustrated.
Did they get moved off the ball a little bit, you think?
Yeah, they got handled physically.
Wow, that's the first time
They
you guys have ever said
added a
that.
few too. They added a few, and they shot gaps pretty well.
They
too.
did, yeah.
They did. Defense linemen did.
We're going to get into that offensive line and running game. I wanted to real quick, even though this game doesn't mean much, go into a little bit of Dallas and their defense that we would have ordinarily seen today if the game meant
So let's
something.
talk about their defense with their real people then.
Yes, that's what I said. Yeah,
Okay,
that was the big question mark for this team going into the year. Would their defense be able to match their offense? And then you look at the way the year's gone, their defense has been pretty good despite the fact that they've missed a lot of guys throughout the year, including DeMarcus Lawrence, but they bring the 7th best defense, scoring defense, into the link today. Third down efficiency is 3rd best in the league, and they have an NFC leading 33 takeaways. Dan Quinn, obviously, Adam, you've talked about him a lot, adjusting his core defensive philosophy, playing more man. Greg, when you've watched them though on tape all throughout the year, what really jumps out at you?
Well,
about
that's
this
the
Dallas
first
defense?
thing, and I wrote about that with Mike Tannenbaum on the 33rd team. I wrote about that early in the year. It was after 3 or 4 weeks, and I'm thinking, Dan Quinn has evolved. Now, whether he evolved just philosophically, no matter where he would have been, or he evolved because he sees this personnel and feels this was the best way. But Dan Quinn, people probably remember, was the first Legion of Boom defensive coordinator, and they literally played cover 3 on every snap with Cam Chancellor, a box/overhang player, and Earl Thomas at the time the best free safety in the game. So that was what he did in Seattle, and they literally lined up in that every single play because they had players that could execute it at a really high level. He gets to Dallas, and after being fired in Atlanta, where he did not play a ton of, and he started to make a little bit of a transition in Atlanta, but Dallas, they have played more cover 1 percentage-wise than any team in the NFL this year. Okay, this is a cover 1 defense, and they have playmakers at all 3 levels. When everybody's healthy, they have playmakers at all 3 levels. Now, I would argue from tape study, and I've seen every Cowboys game on tape. I don't know how much you've seen, but I think Trayvon Diggs is a playmaker, but not a great corner. Like I think
too many chances.
Would you agree with me?
That's always been.
Yeah.
He's a playmaker.
But he's not a great corner.
Well, he doesn't have the experience at corner to be a great corner right now. His eyes are bad. And things.
His
like
eyes
that.
are bad. He gets he gets beat. He gets beat on double moves. He gets beat with technique. You know, he turns his body way too much. Don't you agree with watching him? But he's a playmaker.
Sure.
I mean, you can't disregard. I think 12 picks. Is that it?
Yeah.
And obviously, Micah Parsons to me is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, he lines up on the ball, off the ball. When he's on the ball, he lines up as a pass rusher. On the outside, he'll line up inside. They'll go to those double mug looks with 2 players in the A gaps. He's just a dominant force.
Backs.
He covers back.
Yeah, we're gonna.
And then they got Gregory. See, Gregory is a fascinating player to me because I watched him coming out of Nebraska, and obviously he had problems going back then. Gregory would have been a top 10 pick, as you know, if he had no issues coming out of Nebraska. That guy is long, athletic. He can bend. He's fluid. He's explosive. I mean, Gregory's a big-time player, and they're very multiple with their front looks. They don't just line up and say, "Here we are." They are very multiple with their front looks.
And this is an important conversation for a couple of reasons. One, because obviously we're talking about a division team here, and some of these players we're talking about are young.
They're
Diggs
young.
And Micah. And number 2, you, Jason Avant, were part of the last team in the NFC East to win it 2 straight years. And no, you actually weren't. You didn't get to. It was the 2003-2004 Eagles, so you were not on that team. So since you've been in the league and you're since retired a couple of years now, no team has won the NFC East back-to-back years. Dallas is going to win it this year, so history would suggest not, but they're very young and talented in an area where a lot of people felt they were weak. Adam, what are the odds, though, that Dan Quinn does not stick around very long? Is this going to help him?
Yes.
He's red hot.
It absolutely will get him attention. He'll interview for the Jaguars job when he has time. He declined to do it right now.
Right.
He's really rebuilt his career here because they've been so good on defense. And I'm talking to people who know him or pretty close to him. Well, he felt that he wanted to be a head coach again, but he wanted to kind of rebuild what he had done earlier in his career with Atlanta. When they were really good. Remember, this was a Super Bowl team.
Right.
Should have won that game, right?
Yeah, he was head coach then.
Yeah. And then what happened was, and I don't blame him for doing this, there was a mistake, though. Arthur Blank gave him personnel control. He wasn't ready for it.
I feel like I've heard that story before.
Yeah, and they made a lot of mistakes in the draft, and it wound up costing him, and he lost his job. But he's done a phenomenal job. Because you're talking about how he changed the defense early on. In a way, it's what Sirianni did. What's best for the football team?
Right.
Well, they've got really good talent on defense, which I like Mike Nolan a lot personally. He's a good man. He ran a 34 front. He tried to do it during the pandemic. It didn't work.
Yeah.
At all.
No.
We talked about it on our show last year.
Yes, we did.
There were some weeks where they were like not competitive.
The first 4 weeks were really
bad.
rough
Right. The
for
numbers
them.
were historically bad. That cost him his job.
Yeah.
But you got to give him credit. Now, are they more talented? Is Parsons a game changer? Perhaps. And Diggs is obviously now a full-time guy. But this is a great job. This has absolutely helped him. With him, he needs to figure out who his offensive coordinator is going to be, because teams don't usually like to hire guys from the defensive side of the football,
Right.
unless they've got a really good offensive coach.
Jay, you kind of bristled. Are you not sold on a Dan Quinn renaissance or rebirth somewhere else?
No.
Oh.
Just the Jaguars. I'm not
yeah.
happy to go there. I would just say stay where you are, because
Why?
that talent. Just like I don't think that the Jaguars have proven in their organization that they have a winning mentality. So why would you go somewhere that you're going to be out of a job in 3 years or 2 years or whatever? I would wait and have good talent, continue to let my resume build itself, and go to a place that I have what I want. And that's what you want as a defense coordinator or a guy that's looking for a head coaching job. You want power.
Right.
You want the ability to win in that position that you're going to.
I don't know how much better, though, that your defense could be with Dallas.
Well,
I mean, at this
I
point,
guarantee they think it can be better.
how so? How much better?
Individual players can be better. We spoke about Diggs.
Yeah.
Diggs can be a better player.
Yeah.
People see the interceptions and they see the total, but Diggs has had a lot of bad snaps this year.
Well, I know
He
there's a
can be
number out
better.
there for PFF. He's
Yeah.
put up a lot of yards, but
He's really raw.
He's really raw.
That's the thing. Like, it's hard to transition. Like, he transitioned at Alabama to corner. It takes some time.
Yeah.
And especially with how talented he is, he's going to get out of position with his feet, because he's always looking for the ball.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you have to stop and put your feet in position before you can start to locate the ball. He wants the ball now.
Yeah.
So it puts him in bad positions at times.
They drafted the corner out of Kentucky, Kelvin Joseph, correct?
Yes, who, by the way,
Who needs some work?
he initially was at LSU, had
Right.
issues at LSU. I guess
Right.
if you have issues at LSU, then it must be pretty bad. And he ended up in Kentucky. I don't know if you've seen him. He's a first-round talent.
Yeah.
But he was a second-round pick because people were uncertain as to because apparently last year he left the Kentucky program with a game or two to go, and I was told by someone in the know that he was kind of asked to leave the program with a game or two to go.
which would help explain why you're
Right.
That would help.
I'm just saying what I was told. I don't have inside
But you
information.
like the tape, though. You like
His
the tape.
tape's really good. I mean, he's a big-time talent at corner. I mean, I could see their corners, assuming Joseph, has his head on straight and the whole deal. I could easily see their outside corners being Joseph and Diggs,
Right.
and they'd be set. Those guys, and they can both play press man.
He hasn't played much this year, correct?
More recently, but
Okay.
no, he hasn't played a lot this year.
And their defense is just solid everywhere. There's really not many dogs on their team. Like, there's times where we question our guys if they should be starters or not.
Right.
Like, even their guys like Anthony Brown or Jordan Lewis
get
or
picked on.
some of their safeties, Curse, they're starters still.
Curse is a good player.
Yeah, but I'm saying they're starters, and they have a guy like, to me, when you have a guy like Malik Hooker that can cover any tight end, right? That has a nose for the ball, who was a first-round pick. That's just a luxury to have him in a backup role. It is, because you can bring him in as a Dallas Goedert stopper.
Right.
You could.
Yeah. Well, what they do on defense normally, first of all, they don't play base defense. Their base defense is big nickel. Because J-Ron Curse has had an unbelievably good season. He's a very multi-dimensional player. He found a home there.
I liked him with Minnesota. I thought he was
Yeah,
a
but he
decent
was
player.
kind of seen coming out of Clemson as somewhat positionless in the fact that he was
So
6'4",
tall.
220.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
He wasn't really a
Box
safety in the
guy.
way
Right.
people see safeties in the league, and he's not really a linebacker. So he's found a home in Dallas because more and more teams, that's been a big trend in the NFL, big nickel, teams playing three safeties,
Yeah.
when one of the safeties is kind of a hybrid.
So-
and he's been predominantly their tight end matchup.
Right.
But Hooker, when he came out of Ohio State, Hooker was an all-state basketball player in Pennsylvania. Hooker's a great athlete. Now, he had the injury, knee, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
pretty significant.
But
Yep.
and Hooker hasn't been used much this year as a tight end matchup, but he's got the physical traits to be able to do that. And I think, I don't know your thoughts, I think Donovan Wilson shows up on tape in every game I watch
every
the
game.
Cowboys. You know, they use him. All their safeties are kind of multi-dimensional in the way they get deployed.
You got to give Quinn credit because a lot of these guys were with him last year.
Yeah.
And they were not playing at the level that they're playing now. And then you add
Micah Parsons.
Micah Parsons and Keanu Neal.
That guy's just different.
Keanu Neal, Greg, is a guy that was a first-round safety for Atlanta, and,
Well, he's
and
the
Dan
reason,
brought him over.
and
right?
that's
He's
one of the reasons
playing
they got rid of
linebacker.
Jalen Smith.
Yeah.
Yeah. Back to Micah, he's obviously going to run away with Rookie Defensive Player of the Year. He may win NFL Defensive Player of the Year. The stats say, I mean, he's got 13 sacks. That's 6th in the league. He's second in the NFL with 119.5 sack yards. Second in the NFL with 20 tackles for a loss. 30 quarterback hits are third in the NFL. So he's
I think
putting
he'd be
up the
leading the
numbers.
league in sacks if he purely lined up as an edge pass rusher.
Here's the
Right.
crazy thing. So I'm at training camp with them with the Rams in Oxnard. He is their middle linebacker. And he was not lining up over the 2 days that I saw at DN. Well, what happened was
People got hurt.
DeMarcus Lawrence broke his foot. Jones fractured in week 1. Gregory was not always available. He was also on the COVID list earlier. And they were running out of DNs, and they had to line him up. Now, was Parsons in high school? Did he play? Was he a different
Parsons
position?
played defensive end in high school
Okay.
and was recruited
There you
as a
go.
defensive end by a lot of schools.
Right.
And ended up going to Penn State, and they transitioned him to
So
a
fast.
stacked backer.
Right.
But he was recruited by a lot of schools as a defensive end. He was a pass rusher in high school.
Did he rush the passer at all in college?
Yes, but
Yeah,
he didn't
but
really.
not in the not like from the edge the way
No,
he
yes,
lines up
yes,
and
right. Wow.
Even I can answer that being
Dan
a
Quinn has done a phenomenal job of understanding what guys can do.
And to me, I think he's pretty refined as a pass rusher. I don't think he's one of those guys that just goes.
Yeah.
I think he has a pretty good feel for how to rush the quarterback.
Wow.
Well, as we said before, he's not going to play. He didn't even travel, so he'll wind up falling 2 sacks shy from setting the league record for rookies for sacks of 14.5, held by the freak,
Yeah.
Oh,
Javon
Javon Curse,
Curse
yeah.
from Tennessee, whose nephew, by the way, is Jaron Curse, the safety that we talked about with the Cowboys. But it is worth of note, Parson has more games this season with at least 1 sack, which is 9, than he has without a full sack, 7. So he has been a consistent
he's a
presence.
force.
He was not some guy who just flashed in 5 or 6. Sometimes you see that. A guy
This
will
is a
have
Penn State thing.
Yeah, of course it is. All right. And by the way, his 13 sacks are going to wind up being tied for 3rd all-time for rookies behind Javon Curse. Aldon Smith had 14 in 2011. And Dwight Freeney from Syracuse, right?
Yep.
He also had 13 in 2002.
No one quicker beating the snap than Dwight Freeney.
He had the best spin move.
That too.
He had that spin.
But he would
move.
beat
That
the
was
snap.
ridiculous.
Yep.
Now, who rounds out the top 5? Who had also had 13 as a rookie in 1985?
Richard Dent.
85.
Come on, this is Philadelphia. Reggie White.
Reggie. Oh, was he well, he was a supplement. Okay, right. He was
Yeah,
with
I
the
know, it's a
Showboats,
little
right,
bit,
right.
13.
That's right. Wow.
Well, let us talk about we did talk about a little bit. I still want to go back into this idea of a number 2 wide receiver or somebody opposite.
Or third.
Yeah, a number
Third
3
passing
target,
option,
a number
yeah.
2 wide receiver emerging as his team heads into the postseason. More so because, and I think you're starting to see last week a little bit, teams are going to key against the Eagles' run game. They know that's the strong point. Right? They also know Devontae Smith is going to be their number 1 outside target. So a guy like Greg Ward is coming on lately. Is he someone, as you've watched for the last few weeks, you think maybe he's not going to catch 6 or 7 balls, but will start to come through with the bigger 3rd and 6, I need a guy to make a catch? Is this guy kind of emerging for Jalen Hurts as someone you'd want to throw the ball to?
The one thing that I know this from being in the building is that Jalen Hurts really respects and trusts Greg Ward. I know Greg Ward always will get passed over because of where he is in his overall talent and the number of guys that they've drafted at the position. They're always going to get a head start over Greg Ward. So Greg can get open in situations if you deploy him the right way. Let's think about it, right? He's been targeted in the red zone, I want to say 4 or 5 times, and I think he dropped 3 of them.
Oh, more than that, yeah. Going back to the beginning of the
going
year,
down
yeah.
to the beginning, but he's always open on them,
Right.
So getting open isn't the problem for Greg Ward. It's just getting an opportunity, and we know that he can have some success in these situations because he can be man coverage in the right situation.
So he's averaged about 14 snaps a game for the last 3 weeks, which doesn't sound like a lot, but when you compare that to the 9-week stretch before that, from week 5 to week 13, he was only playing about he'd only played 7 snaps or more 3 times. And 2 of those games were blowouts. One was where they blew out the Lions. The other one was, I forget which
Broncos?
game. Yeah, I think it was the Broncos. So he really had been barely playing 7 snaps a game. So now you're starting to see his snaps get doubled. So
they're just starting to figure out that the guys that they're down on Jalen Reagor, of course. And they're starting to realize that, we're going to need somebody to come through. And these guys, we've been playing them all year, and no one is really stepping up and showing up on tape.
If it's 3rd and 5 and Goddard and Smith are covered, who's that guy who could help them?
Right.
That would be Greg Ward, because he is a kind of a reliable guy other than the drops in the red zone. He's put up numbers before.
I mean, in 2019, he was an important part going down the stretch.
Yeah, that's
if
what
you
I mean.
look at his numbers in that year and even last year, compare them to, I think he has like 6 catches for 60 yards this year. He's had that in games before.
Yeah.
I mean, he just completely fell off the earth for this coaching
Well,
staff.
because of
what they brought in.
theoretically, talent-wise, Reagor and Watkins bring more to the table.
Right.
But the way the season has played out, with the pass game not really being what you want it to be overall, now you're at the point where you got to win games.
Right.
And I'll say this about the drops, about the ones that he dropped. It's a very, very hard task to not play and be thrown in the game. Now you have to be a pro in Greg Ward's situation, because you know where you are on that totem pole and you know where you are positioned. But it's a very, very hard task to do that, and you have to stay mentally prepared. Not many people can do it.
Right.
So I do give him credit for going out there and trying to make a few plays, but it's hard when you don't get any run. But hey, get in there and catch a touchdown. It doesn't work like that.
How much does him being a former quarterback, you think, factor into his ability to find ways to get open without great speed or without great size? Is that anything?
Zone recognition, you're automatically going to know what's going on. That's the one thing him and I talked about a bunch. Like, Greg Ward doesn't have a problem in zone. He's going to know when to throttle. He's going to know what the hot read is. He's going to know all of those things, which give the quarterback, Jalen Hurts, more confidence, because you don't have to guess. Quez Watkins, even Devontae Smith, all those guys, you're going to guess in situations. Greg, you're not. Man to man, it just takes a little bit more talent sometimes in order to win, or talent and technique. Okay. And but zone, he'll definitely know what's going on.
And Ward caught that touchdown pass from Hurts last year, right, against the Packers, I believe?
It was against the Packers.
Yeah.
His first touchdown pass went to Greg Ward on a deep over.
Well, he left the
he left the pocket, but he kept his eyes downfield.
Yeah.
And that was on a 3rd and 18, I think.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right, let's take a quick break to hear from our friends at Sky Motor Cars, including the voice of the Eagles, Mr. Merrill Reese.
Motor Cars in Westchester is a different sort of dealership. All it takes is one look at their Highline pre-owned vehicles that people all over the country want and need. Owner Brett Schiller, make sure you don't spend a dime of your money before you purchase the car. Sky Motor Cars allows you to make all the decisions regarding your next vehicle. At Sky Motor Cars, you never have to spend more than necessary. Visit SkyMotorCars.com today or call 610-918-7225.
All right, big thanks to our friends at Sky Motor Cars. And listen, you're going to thank them even more, because they're going to give you a chance to go to today's game between the Eagles and Cowboys. At the end of this show, head to the Sky Motor Cars Instagram account, and you will find information from them on how to get tickets to today's game. They're giving away 3 tickets, so make sure you go to Sky Motor Cars on Instagram at the end of the show. Thanks to Sky Motor Cars. Before we kind of take our longer break, I wanted to get back to the Eagles running game. Really on Jordan Howard. He was such a big part of their turnaround. Miles got hurt. Jordan came in, provided a very downhill style run to their game. Last week, he was playing despite having both a stinger and an AC joint mild sprain. Either way, they're conspiring, and you saw the numbers. They weren't very good. 26 yards, 2.4 yards per carry. Adam, you said that people who watch the tape could tell that he looked very tentative.
Yeah, he just didn't look right. I mean, he got cleared to play, so he was healthy enough to play. He just didn't look like himself. And he's just that one guy they have who's got size at running back, which they could need. Now, we'll see who they play. We don't know who they're going to be playing next week. But he's definitely someone they need to have. But the big thing with Sanders not playing, you just see they're just different.
Right.
Greg's outlined what he's looked this season. They lack that explosive element without him. Now, tonight, I'd like to see Gainwell be that guy. I understand that, look, Sanders is more explosive, but Gainwell in 2019 had an unbelievable year for Memphis. I'd like to see some of those explosive plays tonight against a Dallas defense probably going to rest a bunch of players.
Which he flashed at times earlier this season. But no, they struggled last week. I mean, Scott and Howard in the first half last week had 9 rushes for 15 yards combined.
It's not going to work.
They were controlled last week in the run game.
Yeah.
And, and obviously they won the game. And, we talked about the fact that if they can't run it, what happens next?
Right.
And they're likely to face that kind of situation at some point in the playoffs.
So as we understand it, Miles Sanders is still going to be pretty iffy to be able to play in a playoff game.
Really, even next week?
Door's not closed, but it's going to be tough, as we understand.
Because he had a procedure done, right?
Right. You get a pin inserted in your hand. You got a break. I mean, you're supposed to be non-contact for a little while on that. So if he's iffy, and Jay, I think you talked about it with Quintin Mikell on the Q&A show, so I want you to expand a little bit. When you're a running back or even a receiver, you take contact and you have an AC joint injury, that doesn't just go away immediately.
No.
It sounded like you were saying that kind of lingers.
It does.
Which a stinger also does, by the way.
Yeah, those things kind of linger, and every time you get hit on it, it hurts. It's a pain tolerance thing, and it's not something that's just easy to do. It's a range of motion thing.
Right.
It hurts when you sleep. It hurts
Isn't
when
that
you
kind
cough.
of a weird pain, too?
Yeah.
It's not like,
it's like it's this motion where you can't. It's hard for you to get your. I know for a receiver, it's pretty bad.
Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure for him to lean that shoulder into guys. If a guy hits that shoulder, it's going to make him a little bit timid.
Well,
so we saw that last week on a few really short yardage runs where he didn't. We were used to seeing the Powell move, and it was
I think he had no yards on his first 3 carries, if I'm not mistaken. It was not good. So, look, I mean, the broader question and what you hear a lot of is, are the Eagles the dangerous team headed into the playoffs? And people say, yeah, they can run on anybody, their offensive line. But if you're playing Tampa Bay, if you're playing Arizona, if you're playing the Rams,
you're going to have to score.
You have no Miles Sanders, and you have that version of Jordan Howard, that to me is not a good. That does not make them a dangerous team.
People should know better than to say you can run on anybody.
Of course.
Because you know what? You can't run on anybody.
Right.
And it doesn't always happen that way. I mean, we spoke earlier in the show about the Titans with Derrick Henry. You can't run on anybody. We know that's their foundation, and we're not suggesting that they abandon the run and come out tossing the ball all over the yard. But there's going to be a game where they're not going to run on
It's
anybody.
just not working, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Like last week. If you take Howard and Sanders away against any of those teams, I feel like you're at a big disadvantage. Am I wrong to think that way? I mean, those 2 guys have been a big part of what you do as a run game.
It is, and you know what? I don't understand. Like, why don't we boot much? I don't.
We don't do that a lot.
I just don't understand it.
Well,
and you made that point earlier in the year.
Here, I'll throw
Adam,
something out, just an opinion. You can boot out a shotgun, okay? You can.
Yeah, we would.
But the majority of teams that are really good with play action boot do it with the quarterback under center.
Right.
Okay? I personally think that's harder to defend when the quarterback's under center
when it's
with
back
play
to
action
center.
boot.
When it's back to center.
Yeah, so the Eagles are a shotgun offense. They have been for the last 3, 4, 5 weeks. I mean, Hurts is predominantly out of the gun because then you get the zone read. You get the other elements in the run game that are hard to defend as well.
Sure.
But I think the play action boot game, you find the teams that are really good at that do it with the quarterback under center.
Right. So it's a concern right now. I mean, maybe if they do that, then you start to consider Jalen Hurts as part of the running game, the designed running game again. But even in shotgun, they haven't been running him as much on the zone.
Then it's the balance of what you want to do offensively.
But they can do it, though.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Because don't forget, defenses have boot rules. So if you boot, second-level players have boot rules, and they respond, and you know what those boot rules are, and then you can play off those boot rules.
Gotcha. All right, thank you again for tuning in to Inside the Birds Pregame Live with Jeff Mosher, Adam Kaplan, Greg Cosell, and Jason Avant. And now let's hear from our friends at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook.
This is my city. This is a city that knows how to play. A city that's in it for the win. So I go to the place that gets that. where they know how Philly likes to play, and where I know my seat is always ready. This is my place.
All right, big thanks to our friends at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook, the home of Inside the Birds pregame live all season long. We've had a great time, and we look forward to doing more in the playoffs this year. It is time for our weekly segment with former Eagles Pro Bowl safety Quintin Mikell. It's called Q's Views, and in this segment, we discuss the importance of rest going into the postseason and why no team in the NFC East seems to want to repeat as division champs.
Since '03.
In the regular season with former Eagles Pro Bowl safety Quintin Mikell. It's been a great ride this year, Q. The Eagles are in the playoffs, and they have Dallas today at the Link, and we really don't know what to expect as far as competitiveness of this kind of game because there's really not much at stake for either team. What's it like to play in that style of game?
Well, this type of game is for a starter, it's a little more difficult because it's kind of tough to get up for a game, even though it's a division opponent. There's always going to be that competition factor and the factor to win the game. But also, when you're looking at a team, both teams heading to the playoffs, your mindset is, hey, listen, I don't want to be injured. I don't want to miss the playoffs. And so it's a little bit, the edge is taking off just a little bit. But I will say for the younger players and non-starters, this is a great opportunity for them to really get out and, get some experience, get some good tape, and, get an opportunity to show the coaching staff and the rest of the NFL what they're capable of.
What is the Quintin Mikell philosophy if you were a head coach and you're in this situation of rest versus results? Do you play to win, or do you try to keep your team as fresh as possible for the postseason?
For me, it's all about the postseason now, especially when you're sitting at the 7th seed, I believe. You're going to have a tough road to go. And so for me, I would not totally sit my starters. If I'm the coach, I'm going to play my starters, maybe one quarter to a half, depending on the position and the amount of years they've been in the league. And then definitely after the first half, none of my starters or my key starters are playing in the rest of the game. Let those guys rest, get an extra half off, kind of get focused and then retool and re-energize for the playoff run.
Sounds like you may have played for Andy Reid in your past, a very Andy Reidian philosophy. Did you feel like when you guys did that back in those days, the mid-2000s, that especially the way he did training camp, that when you went into the playoffs, you did feel more fresh and revived?
Yeah, absolutely. I think by playing, the starters for the first quarter or the first half, you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get you're still you're not rusty. You're still, kind of sharp going into the next game, but also you get enough rest and, avoidance of injury possibility heading into the playoffs. So you get the best of both worlds by doing it that way. And I think it's really the best. I think it's the best way to do it.
Let's talk about this Eagles team really quickly. It's felt like 2 seasons, I think, for everybody watching them, the first 7 games, and then after that, a totally different team. Do you still kind of wonder to yourself who these Philadelphia Eagles are?
A little bit at times. I think they've found the right formula. And I think that the coaching staff and the players found the right formula. I still think that they're still trying to find themselves, especially with Jalen Hurts. You see the evidence in a lot of the last few games in the first half will be coming out and kind of go completely away from what's been working, for the previous games. And it seems like we kind of revert back to that in the second half. So I do still feel, a little bit that they're still trying to find their way, but I also know that they know what they are. So they're still practicing a little bit, especially first half. And they say, okay, well, that's not working. Let's go back to what we do.
We'll definitely get into the playoffs next week with you on this segment. But just in general, just talk about the heightened atmosphere, what practice is like, what the anticipation of that first playoff game. There's a lot of young players on this team who've never experienced it. And then you've got veterans who've won a Super Bowl with this team. So what do you expect that to be like for this organization?
Oh, it's going to be electric. Yeah, I remember my first season and making it to the playoffs. And I remember coming into the building, and I just remember it was eerily quiet. It seemed like the entire building was just on edge, but in a good way. It was quiet. It was focused. And then I remember in practice, this is my seeing, vets, Troy Vincent and Brian Dawkins and those guys, seeing how hard they practice. It seemed like everything turned up another notch just in practice. And so that right there kind of showed me the importance of the playoffs and how it's a different world, really. It's a different experience. And for the young guys, I think they're going to have to really kind of catch up really quickly and understand, listen and follow the older vets and understand, listen, it's one and done. Get your extra film in, get your extra study in, take care of your body. Don't be out in the streets doing silly stuff. And then, when you come to work and ready to go, because it's one and done.
You mentioned your playing days, Q, and it may surprise you to know that you played on the last NFC East team that won the division 2 straight years. That would be the 2003 and 2004 Philadelphia Eagles. Ever since then, we're going on 17 years now. We got kids, we're getting old, we're breaking down, and still no team has won the division for 2 straight years. But this Dallas team seems to have a nice young nucleus to it and a good mix finally after a long time of a good offense and a good defense together. Are you concerned that they've kind of found the elements here and that they could be a division powerhouse, and they won the division this year and maybe next year?
Yeah, I think they put this team together the right way. I still do think that there's some chinks in the armor. I do think that even though that on paper and sometimes at games they seem dominant, but it hasn't been consistent enough. So this definitely is a team that's gettable at any time. They make mistakes. And of course the injury bug can hit at any time. So I still think that on paper that this team definitely can do some damage from here on into the future, but it's not a foregone conclusion. So
yeah, you 03, 04 Eagles guys, what you got to do is anytime there's a team that won the division and then the next year looks like they're going to win the division, you got to be like the 72 Dolphins crew. You got to show up at games wearing your old shirts and your menacing glares on the sideline. You got to make it real difficult if it's going to be Dallas, especially next year, for them to want to win the division again. You got to be like that, the 72 perfect Dolphins.
Absolutely. Or possibly just be on the sidelines and maybe stick a foot out or something when they're I'm just kidding. But no, yeah, definitely it's something that you got to try to remind all these former players, current players, and their fans that listen, we still here. So
what do you think that means just in general about the NFC East, that there hasn't been a repeat champion in 17 years?
I think that shows the parity in the league. Most teams in leagues, they design themselves, they build themselves to be able to beat their opponents in their division, because you have to go through your division to really get a chance in the playoffs. And so I think that that's probably the biggest thing, is that each team is really designed to compete against each other. You got a good quarterback. You see Washington drafting Chase Young and defensive ends to get after the quarterback. So I think that that's typically the reason why that happens. And it's kind of been up and down. This year has been kind of a weird year, but I think that the NFC forever will probably be this way. It's tough to win in this division.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, not that it matters much, but you have to predict a winner like the rest of us. So who's going to win today?
It's a tough one. With the possibility of so many starters out, resting guys, I don't know if the Eagles have enough firepower in the backup, the second and third string to really hang with this Dallas offense. So I think the Eagles are going to go down. I think it's going to be a little bit closer. I think Dallas is probably going to hold some cards close. So I think it's going to be a closer, probably ugly game. So I'm going to say the Eagles are probably going to lose. I'll say probably 21-17.
Wow, been a long time since you picked against the Eagles, but this time I don't think the fans are going to be upset with you. I think that makes a lot of sense. Q, appreciate it. This has been another edition of Q's Views. Big thanks to former Eagles Pro Bowl safety Quintin Mikell. See you next week, Q.
Thank you.
All right, that was Q's Views with former Pro Bowl safety Quintin Mikell, and of course you can catch the Q&A show with Quintin Mikell and Jason Avant right there every Thursday morning, 6 a.m. on the Inside the Birds platform. It's a great show. Make sure you check it out. We are in hour 2 of Inside the Birds pregame live. There's still plenty of time for tonight's game. Come down, place a few wagers, take advantage of the food and drink specials. They've got chairs here that are probably more comfortable than the ones I have at my house. And of course, they've got big screen TVs the size of my house. So why wouldn't you want to come down? I have a small house though, but come down and check out all the great things here at Rivers Casino and Sportsbook. You know, we talked about this week 3. I'm going to bring it back up.
Week 3?
Yeah, when the Eagles played Dallas the first time.
Oh,
Yeah.
that was a terrible game.
And it was so odd.
No, even before the game, I remember
timing of it.
saying, Eagles Dallas week 3. You just don't get that great like Eagles Cowboys rivalry vibe that early in the season. And then here at the end of the year, I even remember saying, if that game is meaningless at the end of the year, you don't get the full extent of Eagles Cowboys, the rivalry, the juice to it. There's clearly not that much juice to today's game. It should be like college football, like rivalry week, the last game of the year. You face your rivals,
Well,
like
that's why
Michigan, Ohio
that's why
State.
the league made it
like
the last
that.
game.
I know.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
I know.
it didn't work out the way they
No.
thought.
Just
So
every
which
now and
team?
again.
And the amazing thing is,
Who would have I mean, think of it this way, okay? Number one, just the fact the Eagles are in the playoffs.
Right.
But who would have thought 7-8 weeks ago that the Week 18 game wouldn't mean anything?
Right.
For a good reason.
I mean, wow, for a good reason. That's
believe
right.
that?
and then the NFL said, well, why don't we put this game on Saturday night?
I imagine the NFL and ESPN are probably not dancing in the streets right now.
Yeah, I imagine they probably aren't.
Well, this game
but
would,
let's
it
get
would mean
back
a
to,
lot if they won the game last week.
Yeah.
If the Cowboys would have beat the Cardinals, this
Then
game
the
would be
Cowboys
important.
really would have
Yeah.
had to, yeah.
Yeah, they would have. Yeah. You heard me ask Quintin Mikell in this segment if I asked him if he knew about the Eagles' identity yet. You know, that was something that we talked about a lot early in the year. What's the identity of this team? And now, after 17 games, do you feel like you know who this team is? And I think that's even more of a complicated question when you talk about the defense, because what you saw over the first 7 weeks and what you've seen since are completely different. But by the same vein, when you talk about who they faced over the first 7 weeks compared to since then, is also a big part of the discussion. But I just want to bring to light the stats real quick. Points allowed for the first 7 weeks, they were 26th in the league. Over the last, from week 8 to week 17, they're 4th in the league. I mean, that is about as big of a turnaround as you can make. Completion percentage was 74% early on, 65% over the last 8 to 9 weeks. Passer rating against them was 103 in the first 7 weeks, down to 83.3 from weeks 8 to 17. And then, of course, you see the rushing yards, the third down percentage. It's all much better. So the question is, and I get that there's probably a lot of gray area here, is which one are they? Exhibit A, Exhibit B, somewhere in between. It's a very difficult question. Adam, the only change that they made personnel-wise is really at linebacker, where T.J. Edwards has replaced Eric Wilson, who's no longer with the team. We've talked about the schematic things they do differently. I know you still feel like you have you've got trust issues with the coordinator.
I mean, look, the numbers, you just read them, and there's no question so you can trust. He trusts Jonathan Gannon, the Eagles D coordinator, trusts his players more because they're doing more.
Right.
But I do worry, and I hate to make this simplistic, but I do worry about what happens when you face better quarterbacks, because we saw the last time they faced a big-time quarterback, that's when Gannon was playing off coverage, Keenan Allen killed them. A lot of things that we called on the pregame show wound up happening. They were going to have too much space. Now you could play your defense differently when you're playing a better schedule. So now in week 1 in the playoffs, they're probably going to either face Brady or Stafford. Murray, it's a very small chance. I think that would be their best matchup, by the way. But if it's Stafford or Brady, you just can't play off.
Right.
You just cannot let these guys repeatedly get open. And Cooper Kupp's ridiculous. I mean, that would be scary.
That's why I felt the Rams would actually be a tougher matchup than I think other people are saying for them.
Now Tampa Bay without Antonio Brown, of course, and Chris Godwin is really good. And Brady doesn't move that great, but it is Tom Brady. He makes the guys you've never heard of, like Cyril Grayson, household names. But getting back to your question, I still struggle to trust what he'll do against the better quarterbacks, because I know it's the second half. This is over 2 months ago, but we have the blueprint. He was very passive.
Yeah.
Those are facts.
Let me just go through those quarterbacks real quick. Bridgewater, Trevor Siemian, Daniel Jones, Zach Wilson, Garrett Gilbert, Mike Glennon, Jake Fromm, and Taylor Heineke. Greg, Jason made a good point on the Q&A show. He said, last week's game there was a lot on the line. Playoffs, you got to win that game. Trying to make the playoffs.
Yep.
Taylor Heineke comes out and completes 14 of his first 15 passes.
Correct.
What happens when that turns from Taylor Heineke to Tom Brady or Matt Stafford or whoever? That's not going to cut it.
Well, that's an open question for
That
sure.
is an open question.
Without question, that's a question. So look, it's always said, and it's true, you can only play who's on your schedule, and oftentimes you can improve based on that because you can actually see success, okay, as opposed to not seeing success. So when you see success, not only, and Jay can speak to this, not only do the players then think, hey, I'm believing more in the system because what's being implemented is now being executed at a better level. So players begin to think, hey, this is working, but we don't know what it's going to be like because there's a talent level issue as well here. We don't know what it's going to be like when they play a Stafford and the Rams offense, which is really good, or Brady, who's obviously great. We don't know the answer to that.
Is there something that you can definitively say you think this defense does well,
Well,
no matter who they're facing?
I'll tell you what I think they've done, and then I'll let you go.
Okay.
What I think Gannon has done over the last number of weeks, which I think is a real positive, is I think he's done more things, number one, but he's also, in my view, been more opponent-specific with what he's done. Whereas I thought early in the year, he just had a specific profile and template, and that's what he was doing every week.
Right.
I think what we've seen him do, and you have to do this in the NFL to be really good, everybody has a certain foundation and starting point, but I think as you play, you have to really tailor things that you do foundationally to the opponent you're facing.
Sure.
I think he's done better at that, and the Eagle defense overall has been better at that in the last 6, 7, 8 weeks.
Sure.
I just say he stops the run pretty good. Now, how much does one value that going against teams that don't care to run it that much in the playoffs, that they're just going to run it just enough in order to keep themselves balanced, right? So that may be 30% of the time. So I think that's what he does best, is try to limit, the run and make a team one-dimensional, and play coverage behind it. And if we're not pressing and getting up on guys, even in zone. So you made a point earlier, and about Dan Quinn and the Legion of Boom. They played cover 3, but Maxwell and Richard Sherman, you would have thought that it was in man coverage most of the time because they didn't give up easy completions because they were long and they stayed on top and they made those even in zone, those completions harder.
Yeah, narrowed the window.
When our team presses up, even in zone, and play closer to defenders, it's a positive. When we just sit back and let guys, run, it's not that great. You have Heineke, looking like Brady for a second, and Brady is not going to change when you press up on him. That's the thing.
Right.
You have to stop completions, and you got to play man versus him, which is a whole different subject.
Sure. So Adam knows that this really, to me, encapsulated, I guess, frustrations or curiosity about play calling against Washington. The final drive of the game, Washington has the ball.
Oh.
Right? The Eagles have the lead.
Right.
Washington has struggled on offense the entire second half.
Right.
The first pass is tipped by Milton Williams at the line of scrimmage, so now it's 2nd and 10. The second pass, he's under just a 4-man duress. He lobs the ball over to Wendell Smallwood. It's not even close to being a completion. It's 3rd and 10. They're backed up. Time's running down. I thought that would be a good opportunity to come after him with a little pressure, because even if you don't hit, if you make him throw the ball quickly, I'm thinking there's an opportunity there that the receiver doesn't even get to the sticks. He has to throw the ball. I know if they're the Ravens are cover zeroing at that point. I'm not expecting that. I felt that was a very, very soft zone that they played, and he completed the pass. 5 plays later, he's trying to throw it into the end zone for a chance to win that game. And I thought it went back to that 3rd down, in my opinion. I'll ask you guys what you thought, where he just sat back. And I thought that was an opportunity lost.
Again, you're getting into.
I know I'm nitpicking on a play
it's a
call.
philosophy. I mean, maybe you have a good answer. To me, that's could you say he could do? Of course, you can say he could have done that, but that's not really been the Eagles' approach this year.
But there have been times where he has, in that situation, we've seen more pressure.
So again, I don't know how to answer that, because in that situation he didn't.
Right.
And all I'm saying is this: let's say he did. Because what is the last thing you want to give up in that situation? A long, long completion that maybe goes for a touchdown. Okay, if that happened, maybe not you, but I guarantee people would say, "What are you blitzing for?"
Exactly.
They're way down deep in their territory. They've got to go.
Well, like I said,
and I'm not saying it's right or wrong. Believe me, I'm just saying this is what
I've
people
thought
would
about
say.
that. Trust me.
You know,
I
that,
thought
hey,
about
what
that.
are you blitzing for? It's Taylor Heineke. He's got to go 80 yards for a touchdown.
Right.
And they needed a touchdown, not a field goal.
That's correct.
Right.
Right.
So why are you doing that?
No,
Why are you
I
giving
totally
that?
thought about that.
So again, I'm not taking
I wouldn't
sides.
have cover zero there, where you do leave.
Right, well,
you just
they
leave
don't
it,
really
right,
play
and they don't do
cover
that.
zero,
But
yeah.
if you said Alex Singleton, are you really jeopardizing?
No,
as a fifth?
and by the way, there's plenty of pressures that are quote unquote safe pressures.
right?
No
Yeah.
question.
That's what I had.
No
in my
question.
mind.
And so I'm saying yes, you could have done that.
Right.
But the fact that he didn't, I don't know what to say to that in response to you. It doesn't make him right or wrong. He just chose not to do it.
This is
Well, go ahead.
I was just going to say, they have a profile defensively. And he's really not going to stay out of it. And here, the key is that the only way they were going to lose it, you were talking about that, is they give up a touchdown. So it was like, all right, hey, you want to take 10, 15 yards at a time? Great. We'll just try to stop you when you get close. And now
They did.
They did. And I don't believe that. People are saying, oh, that could have been a touchdown. I'd heard this and I watched it.
You mean the one that was intercepted?
Yeah, I thought that would have been unbelievable.
No.
He'd have to make the throw of his life to
Yeah,
be
that
complete
wouldn't
that.
be
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
but the
I mean,
fact
that
that he
would've
was
been
in
a
position, let's say that ball hits the ground, it's not an interception.
Right.
Next
He
play.
gets next play. You just don't know.
Right,
I mean,
right,
they
right.
were really close.
The thing is that I understand what you're saying. I understand what Greg is saying. Now, here's the point. At what point do you allow a team to have an opportunity to beat you, or when do you become aggressive? Because going into the playoffs, you're not going to be playing against Taylor Heineke. And if you give a guy an opportunity to beat you, he will. If that's Brady, that's a win for them.
Right.
So at some point
But
you
if
have
it's Brady,
to try
are
to
you
force
blitzing?
it.
If it's Stafford, are you blitzing?
What can you do? You're gonna sit back
You
and
gonna
let
press?
the
You
best
press?
let the best guy in the world, solve a zone that he's seen 1,700
Right,
times.
but would you press Jason?
You press him and you try to throw pressure at him. That's the only way you can beat a guy like that. You press him and you try to get the ball out of his hand.
Because you can't just let him carve you up here, 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 and there.
You got to try to win the football game. You can't play not to lose, and that's what I felt that he did in the last.
Make him hesitate just a little bit. If you can do that, move the
saying
receivers off
Taylor
the ball.
Heineke, Taylor Heineke couldn't beat you, but he was right in that situation.
Yeah,
apparently.
and the other side of that, which is what coaches think about, and again, there's no right or wrong, is they think, okay, if they can go 8, 9, 10 plays, somewhere along the line they're going to make a mistake, whether it's a holding penalty, whatever it is, whatever the mistake may be, and not a lot of teams are going to be able to do that.
Yep.
Now, maybe Stafford and Brady will be able to do that. I mean, history suggests that Brady certainly can do it against anybody.
Right.
Stafford is a big-time talent, and they have really good receivers, that it's going to be fascinating if they play the Rams, and we'd be discussing this next week, obviously, how they choose to play in the secondary, because they can't match up to those three receivers with a heavy dose of man coverage.
Right. Well, it'll be.
There's no way they go man. I mean, Slay's the only one could match up against anyone. Oh gosh, that
Plus,
was
they're-
crazy.
And the Rams are a team that's very multiple with their formations.
Yep.
There's a lot of condensed splits, and bunch
Confusion.
looks, which makes it harder to play man. There's a lot of motion, which forces you defensively to have to declare very often as to what you're doing before the snap of the ball. So we'll get into this more if it is the Rams.
They
but-
will run the ball.
I hope it's Tampa, just personally.
I think when we're talking about who you would least like this Eagles team to play in the playoffs, Adam, we were talking about the other on the podcast. I put the Rams pretty high.
I put them
I
at
either had
one.
them
As a
one
team
or
they
two.
want to play?
No, as a team that they would
not to.
least
Oh.
likely.
I would go
to want to
Rams.
play. You had Arizona higher, I thought. I
No,
thought you had
Bucks. Then it's so tough between. I don't want to face Brady, but again, he's down 2 receivers.
Yeah. Well, for
Kyler Murray's
defense
a guy.
is pretty good too. Though.
Kyler Murray's a guy that is fun to watch, but man,
He's a little.
he's erratic.
He's
sometimes.
erratic,
Yeah,
yes.
I would want to face him, and then we don't know about Hopkins.
Right.
I don't know when he's going to be ready. So.
Right.
Did he have surgery?
He had a procedure. Yes.
Yeah, procedure. Yeah.
Now, there is the slimmest of slim chances that the Eagles could meet the Cowboys in the playoffs, correct? That is still, I
You
believe.
mean in the first round?
In the first round? Is that not?
Let me look up.
Because the Cowboys can still get the
For
third
number
seed.
2. If both the Rams and the Bucks lose?
Yeah, I believe there's a small chance.
For number
A
2.
lot of permutations have to happen where the Eagles could play the Cowboys. Even if they don't, I still want to talk a little bit about the Cowboys and their future like we did in the first half. More so about their offense. Zeke Elliott, I'm guessing, is probably not going to play today, even if he's available. Tyron Smith is out.
Yep.
He did make the Pro Bowl this year. He's had some injuries though. That he's really. I think that was more of a Jason Peters thing at the end.
Yeah, as a name.
Where you make it on your name. Mikell Gallup was a big part of their vertical
Oh yeah,
offense.
he's out for the year.
They lost him. He's out for the
Cedric
year.
Wilson, I think
He played well early.
Yeah, Cedric Wilson can play.
Huge game.
Yeah.
Huge game.
I remember watching him
his
coming
dad?
out of Boise State, and I thought he was an NFL receiver.
Remember his dad, Cedric Sr.? Played for the Steelers
Yeah.
and Cowboys.
I want to bring up Gallup because he was supposed to be a free agent at the end. Well, he will be a free agent at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And I did hear his name come up a lot. It's very rare to
For
see
the Eagles, you mean?
for the Eagles to want a Cowboy because it's not worked out well. But Gallup is a young player. He is a vertical threat. How much do you think that this will impact his market? Because
major,
guys come back though from the ACLs pretty.
Well, Allen Robinson was the one I
now.
checked on this. He was the one guy coming off an ACL the next year. Actually, he got a big deal, and he also did really well.
Right.
But yeah, it's going to impact because it's an ACL injury. And remember, his happened unfortunately just recently.
Right.
So you're going to assume he won't be ready till July or August. Mm-hmm. So you're probably looking at a 2-year structure which means the team could get out after year 2. It'll impact him per year. Oh, it's going to happen.
What do you think he would have gotten totally healthy?
Easily $10 million a year, easily.
Do you think he would have been signed as a team looking at him saying, "Hey, he's our guy"?
I don't think.
I'm just no.
it's a great question.
It is a good question. It's a little bit early because we're in early January here, but let's take the injury away.
Yeah.
He's not because he's been playing in back with obviously Cooper, and now
he is their
CeeDee
boundary
Lamb.
X, though.
Right.
I mean,
I get it. But is he a guy? If you're gonna, it's one thing to play boundary X, but do you command the ball, pass target wise, 7 to 8 times a game? That's what you have to yield to get the kind of contract.
Yeah. Although $10 million for a wide receiver does
not a
not
lot.
make you one of the highest
Right.
paid
No.
receivers in the
He's
league.
a secondary receiver, but he can run, and he's a super high character guy. I knew the former staff with the Cowboys pretty well. They loved him as a guy because he competed. He was good early on. When he was drafted out of Colorado, I believe. Pretty good player.
Colorado State, I believe.
Colorado State.
I loved his college tape. I thought he could be a number. When I say a number 1, people start to think of like the high-end number ones.
Right.
I mean, he's not Jamar Chase, okay?
Right.
But I thought he was a 1-1-8 type receiver coming out of college. Mm-hmm. And obviously he went to Dallas where they have other receivers, and then they drafted CeeDee Lamb, who fell to them in the draft. So, he's not going to put up the numbers, and he's not going to get the targets on a weekly basis that a lot of quote-unquote 1A type receivers get, but I think Gallup's a pretty good player.
He is. He catches a lot of acrobatic catches.
He does.
He's a tough catch maker.
Yes.
And that's a good sign for you.
He's a contested catch guy.
Yeah.
And he can get on top vertically.
I was going to say he gets his vertical routes. His ability separates pretty good.
And he runs in breakers too. I mean, he's not shy about going in the middle. He's not small.
It's a shame.
He's a good-sized kid.
Yep.
Would he theoretically
help us?
And again, we don't know exactly what Nick Sirianni is going to do next year, offensively. But we've got a year of tape on his offense. Would he theoretically be better for the Eagles because he can be an X? You can move Devontae around a little bit, get him off press, maybe out of Z, and put Jalen Reagor if he's still here in the slot.
Well, that's where Devontae is now. So Devontae will be a flanker slot guy his whole career just because of his size. You can't put him at X because X is usually stationary. And it's not the best situation for him.
Right.
But so yes, he would be a great complement to a player like Devontae Smith.
Well, maybe you can get him now at a bargain because of the injury, and you still got your Quez Watkins, and you still have Jalen Reagor. So if he's not ready week 1, it's not like your whole offense goes to shambles.
Mikell Gallup is a 2-year project. Yeah. So hear me out when I say that. Because of the injury. Because of when it happened. Yes, it's the NFL. Yes, it's, but he's not going to be the same player that we've seen him this past season until week 10 of next year. It's just not.
That's the way it
it's
works.
just the way it's the way the injury works. You will be able to play.
I'm trying to figure out. Did anybody tear their Cortland Sutton? Did he tear his ACL last year?
Oh, it was worse than that. His was worse than that.
All right. How's he been this year? Has he not been as a?
Well, he's not targeted very much.
When
he's healthy
though. Yeah. What I'm saying is that you're able to play, but you're not the same player.
Okay.
Yeah, you're able to play, but you're not the same player until.
It's a really good point because they've not got the production they wanted from Reagor and some other guys. next year, whoever they draft or sign must be a factor. They can't wait for Rager to become a player. They need someone for 22 who can come in and be a factor. So they so badly need that third passing target.
Well, here's a
gonna be
fascinating
factor.
question. I love your response to this. Is the Eagle offense what it is because of their receivers? And I'm not saying Rager is great by any means. Rager's been a clear disappointment. And Watkins has a certain skill set, okay? But is the Eagle offense what it is because of the receivers or ultimately because of the quarterback?
Quarterback. Because here's why, though.
I mean,
here's why, though. Here's why.
Which I agree
Look at the
with, by
pass
way.
attempts per game for the first 7 weeks, 35 attempts per game. Out of the blue, all of a sudden, and I still don't know, and I want to find out whose idea it was. Well, the head coach calls the play, so you would think it would be his idea. But I know the way it works. Sometimes coaches will get in the guy's ear who's calling the plays. Hey, listen, let's dial it back a little bit. The quarterback's struggling with accuracy. Because remember, the Niners game, Jeff, you and I were lamenting. We were like, what are they doing throwing the ball so much early?
So,
to me, it just based on...
So here's which raises the second part of my question. Let's say Jalen Rager was, which no one knows unless you're there, was just blowing it up in practice every day, being great. Do you think the Eagles' offense would look different? Do you think they'd be throwing it 35, 40 times a game by choice if Jalen Rager was blowing it up in practice every day? I don't.
Not if you don't believe in the quarterback, of course.
I don't think their offense would be any different at all.
I agree with you.
In terms of, I'm talking philosophically and conceptually.
So do you bring that up to ask why are we even considering an upgrade?
No, because I think at some point you got to get to that.
Yeah.
And Rager may not be the guy.
But you still need, but again,
no.
Now, okay.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, one, I think Rager doesn't get open well. That's just this entire season.
Right.
Now, yes, do I think that the team, to go to both of you guys' point, the 35, passes per game earlier in the season, and them taking it out of his hands, that's because they didn't believe Hurts was the guy to throw the ball that many times.
Yes.
Right.
Now, do I think a guy like Gallup can enhance Hurts? Yes, because you need guys that you can depend on that can get open, that you can win that first read. And that's the thing we don't have, and he doesn't have.
Right.
He's not a progression quarterback now, so you need a guy that can win now.
So I guess the question I'm asking is, would that change the philosophical game plan approach, or do you just end up with a better receiver at that position and the game and
not
the approach,
getting 4 targets a game?
Right. That's really the question. We know that Gallup is, a healthy Gallup is way better than Jalen Rager, certainly at this point.
Yeah.
But does that change, in your mind,
I
would
see
that
what
change
you
how
mean.
they play? That's
It's still
But wait,
we still, as of right now, we still would be a heavy run offense, but in critical situations it would cause us to have a better opportunity to win some of these
because you have
games.
someone who can win.
Okay. So the point being, when you get to 3rd and 9, which you get to in every game, no matter what.
Or
Also-
you get into a game like this past game versus the Redskins or the Washington football team, where you are stuffed in the run game, and now you have to pass it more, and you have another target that's able to get open.
Exactly.
Right.
Plus, you could take shot plays with the guy who's done it before, like Gallup. Now, again, this is before the injury. But there's no question, though, next year.
He says he's a shot play. He's not going to complete it.
What's that? I must have missed that inside joke.
He said shot play. He may not complete it anyway.
No, but that's what I was really asking at him.
That's also kind of under the assumption that the quarterback and passing game are static. Like what you're seeing now is similar, right?
And
they're
by
going to
the
have
way,
to open it up anyway next year.
By the way, my guess is where we stand right now, and maybe Adam has more inside information. I'll find this out, because I don't tend to talk to people during the season very much, because I know how hard I work, and I know how hard they work.
Yep.
So I'll find out more when the season ends. My guess is Jalen Hurts going to be the quarterback next year. I feel pretty confident that's going to be the case.
Why do you feel
He's
that
going to
way?
be what?
I think he's going to be the quarterback.
Really?
next year.
Why do you feel that way?
This is taking a great direction. I want to
Yeah, I
hear
want to hear it.
Yeah.
You say no one told you. You watch the tape more than anyone
Can we
know.
put the breaking news
Why do you feel
overlay
that?
back on the?
Why do you feel that way?
Here's how I'll answer that.
Okay.
I don't necessarily think it should be a given that he is. But my sense is just from everything that he will be, because here's a team that has made the playoffs. They've got a clear offensive identity. Whether we think that identity is a Super Bowl winning identity remains to be seen.
Or sustainable.
Okay, or sustainable. But I would believe that they think that there's been enough improvement. I mean, Hurts has, we've spoken about this.
He has.
There's been incremental improvement. Would I say there's been improvement from, a 2 to a 10? No. But there's been incremental improvement. Mm-hmm. And I think that from what I hear, just from people in the building that I have had a chance to speak to, that there's a feeling with Hurts that he can become better, and all the other factors that go with Jalen Hurts being the kind of guy he is, that I don't think they're going to start over next year. I just don't think that. Okay, because don't forget, you have Sirianni, first-year head coach, making the playoffs. Right. If you decide Jalen Hurts is not your quarterback, you're starting over. Mm-hmm. Okay, you might think that Kenny Pickett, for instance, is in 3-4 years a better player than Jalen Hurts. Okay, but are you really willing to start from scratch next year after this season? I don't think
so. What about the whole veteran angle?
Exactly.
Of a Rodgers or a Wilson or a Watson?
Oh, I don't think they're going to give up.
Cousins.
I don't think they're going to give up all that draft capital, because this is a team that needs a lot. And I think, look, they have. I know the 3 first-round picks as we speak now are not as wonderful as they were 7-8 weeks ago.
Miami.
But they're still 3 first-round picks.
He said Miami screwed it all up.
I know. So I mean, ultimately, what you'd like to get with those 3 first-round picks are 3 starters.
Right.
And I don't think, to me, I don't believe that they will give up. Well, the only person I think they would do that for, and there's many other factors that go with that, is Deshaun Watson.
I would just say this, though. You have to consider who the GM is.
I know who the GM is.
Yes. And you can never discount or say this won't happen with him, because he's pretty aggressive. You just talked about it. They made the playoffs. I've
known the GM for 20 plus years.
Okay.
I know who the GM is.
Okay. If the 4 of us are running the show, I would side with you. We'll have Hurts be the quarterback. Doesn't mean we can't draft the quarterback, by the way, next year.
No.
Well,
that's another
to counter
point.
what you're saying, you have to consider who the owner is. And all I'll say to that is, I would love to be a fly on the wall, knowing what guys know about the GM, and what we know about the owner. I'd love to be a fly on the wall when Howie and Jeffrey are talking about it.
I would say that in a truly ideal world, okay, if we're living in...
Is there an ideal world?
No. In a fantasy world, okay, I believe that the GM would want a different kind of quarterback. I believe that.
I would agree with you.
I believe that.
I would agree with you.
But there's many other factors than just saying that. You have to still line up with someone.
Sure.
So unless you're willing to give away a ton of draft capital, okay, which I'm not sure they're willing to do, maybe they are. Unless you're willing to do that, who else are you lining up with next? Serious question.
Fantastic question.
Because they're not going to settle for Kirk Cousins if he becomes available.
No.
It's either those veterans who you talked about, or you go back to Hurts. But again, we'll talk more about this when we start doing our draft season shows. But even if Hurts is the guy, I still believe he'll draft a quarterback. I didn't say how high, but I do believe that.
And I agree with that.
I agree. And by the way, nobody can complain if they do that, because they, when Carson Wentz got shipped out of town and Jalen Hurts became the guy, oh, well, Carson Wentz couldn't handle the fact that they drafted Jalen Hurts. Well, if they do the same thing, it's fair as fair. If they draft a quarterback, whatever, I don't care what round.
No,
that's how it goes. That's how the Eagles operate.
This is a big boy league.
Yeah.
We're not talking about high school kids.
I know.
It's a big boy
league.
But
you see the reaction to what happened. So I'm just saying it's got to be fair as fair.
The organization loves Jalen Hurts as a person, as a leader, all of his intangibles, the way that guys respond to him, the way he's able to galvanize the locker room, and all those things.
To some degree?
That factors in.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can justify letting go Carson Wentz and his struggles and have a guy, Jalen Hurts, who struggled mightily this year at times, and then, not draft the quarterback high.
And by the way,
I just don't know how the two can work in this city. I don't know.
Let's say, for instance, and then you know how it's going to go. Let's say, and I hope this doesn't happen, because I love hanging out with you guys and I want to do it more. So I hope this doesn't happen.
I know you like money.
Yeah. I hope this doesn't happen, but what happens if in the playoff game Hurts has a bad game?
Oh, hey.
For whatever reason.
I get
okay,
it.
for
We
whatever
already know.
reason.
Go ahead.
It could
We
be
already
for
know.
any
Let's
reason.
extrapolate. Go ahead.
But if Hurts all of a sudden in the playoffs, and let's say they face the Rams or the Bucks and they lose 31-17, and Hurts is, and he has to throw it a lot, and he ends up being 20 for 41, something, whatever. Let's just not a good game.
Yeah.
Then then you're going to have the big discussion.
Of course.
Bigger one than we're having now.
So that's why I think it's a little bit premature to say it's likely.
I'm just saying it's a sense. I personally
You're reading
believe that
twenty
you need a
cents?
lot.
Right in the environment.
I think you need a lot more from your quarterback in today's NFL. So the question becomes what they think he can become.
Right.
That's really the question.
So
what
you
he is,
project his
what
projection.
He is now
Right.
is not enough.
Exactly.
It's not enough.
Well,
What he
along
is
those
now
lines,
is not enough.
But we agree
How
that
much
his
does Nick
past three.
Sirianni have a seat at this table, by the way? I mean,
Good
he's
question.
the head coach.
Yes,
Correct.
good question.
But we also know about the, listen, I don't mean this in a bad way, but the ego and the presence of the general manager and the owner. They're very involved.
Of
They're
course.
You don't have an owner who's living in a different state like the Kansas City, right? He's involved.
He's
So
in the
you
building.
wonder how much the head coach who's sitting there at the table, well, here's what I think. Awesome.
So the question
we
is,
welcome your input,
and this is where practically, as you suggest, Jeff, that the head coach, the offensive coordinator, the quarterback coach need to have input or give their input. They may not be sitting at the draft table, at the moment it happens, but they have to give their input because the question is, what do you think he can become?
what were you going to say?
That's why Doug Peterson's not here, right? what do we like?
Right. I knew you were about to come in with
They
a
want, the organization wants more control.
Yeah. By the way,
And,
the defensive coordinator said he was going to take some time off too, and he didn't take that much time off. He said there were health issues, and now he's been
Jim
with,
Schwartz.
he's been with the Titans all year long. He's
Yeah.
fine.
Right,
He's fine.
right.
They made it kind of be like, oh, he's really got to take some time.
Save some time. No.
2 minutes later, he's with the Titans. So
Yeah.
they basically both said, thanks, but we're
good.
going somewhere else. Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's been conveniently forgotten for the last 12 months.
Not that this matters, although we live in a city where the media is very strong and powerful. It's like in Chicago, okay? You can say what you want about Matt Nagy. Let's say the organization loved Matt Nagy. The fact is, when the drumbeat every single day on sports talk radio and print and social media is Matt Nagy is an idiot, it's hard to keep the coach.
Yeah,
okay?
you got to sell tickets.
So my question is, what do you think the general city, because I don't follow this kind of stuff really closely, what do you think the general feeling in the city is about Jalen Hurts right now?
I think there's generally a pro Jalen Hurts vibe, and people would like to see him stick around for year 2. But you're asking about the city in reaction, right? And I'm not trying to make fun of people. This is just natural how it is. If the Eagles start off 1-3 next year with Jalen Hurts, everybody is going to the same people who are saying you were supposed to be would be saying they made a mistake. They committed too early. They should have drafted. I mean, everybody changes their opinion.
Right.
They love Nick Sirianni right now. They hated him 7 weeks ago.
It's funny you say that because I did notice
They'll hate him if they lose in the
a
first round
lot,
by 20 points.
a lot of the Hurts haters have come around.
Yeah.
But one bad quarter, they're off.
Yeah.
So I don't. I would agree with the assessment. The support's more pro Hurts than not, because the one thing I know growing up here is the fans just want a winner, someone who could win them a Super Bowl. They did it in 17, but they also know enough about football now to know, just like the owner does and the GM and everyone else, you got to figure out at some point who your quarterback is.
Yes. Yeah.
Don't go year to year with it.
Like I said, and we're all pretty good at our respective jobs here of figuring out once that meeting happens, the result of the meeting, we'll all get our sense. But I would really love to be a fly on the wall for when they really talk about the future of the quarterback.
Is there a debate in that room?
And the owner and the GM and the head coach and whoever's involved.
Is there a debate?
It's going to be pretty fascinating to see what comes out of that.
Is Jeffrey's by the way, the owner, we know. We outlined this. We were told we were wrong, and then we knew we were right.
Yeah.
The Athletic had an awesome piece in the spring.
Yeah.
About Jeffrey Lurie's involvement. He's about the quarterback. One of the things I respect about the guy is, if you just ranked all the owners, he's the one guy who understands the value of the quarterback position. That's why he's won so much.
I wouldn't say he's the one guy, but he
of,
is a guy.
Of them,
Yeah.
of all the
Jeffrey
owners,
Lurie?
yes.
Of all the owners.
If you rank them, he's the one of the. There might be 4 or 5 who totally get it, that it's got to be all about the quarterback. He does.
All right.
He's not right on everything. He gets involved too much.
Speaking of quarterback, real quick, because I wanted to get your guys' opinion on the other one. Dallas quarterback Dak Prescott.
Right.
Oh, he started the year like a house on fire. Had the calf injury, missed a couple of games. And ever since he's come back, I don't know. I haven't seen every game, but they've seemed inconsistent at times on offense, and I wonder I know they've had a lot of offensive line shuffles, a ton. But what have you seen from Dak over the second half of the year since he's come back?
Well, they've been an interesting offense. The first 5-6 weeks, they were a dominant running team.
Yeah.
And their run game has dried up. I don't think their all-lines play particularly well. I don't think Zeke has second-level re-acceleration that he's shown in the past.
Yeah.
Their run game has dried up. I think that Dak has been a little hesitant at times in the pocket, a little uncertain at times in the pocket, and therefore he's getting stuck in the pocket. I can't tell you what's in his head, only he can tell you that. But I still think Dak is really talented, and he can be great. And I think that he's a great example of a guy whose career has each year, for the most part, incrementally gotten better and better and better to the point where you thought, hey, Dak's a really good player.
Right.
But right now I think he's a little bit stuck. And to me, the only way to get out of that is to keep playing, which is why I'm fascinated tonight as to what the Cowboys do offensively. Do they rest him, or do they try to get some snaps in? Because last week he and the pass game were not very good at all.
How's the offensive line been?
I think in the run game it's been bad over the last.
Bad?
Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
You know, it's funny. The first 5-6 weeks of the season, which included the Eagles game, they played Terrence Steele at right tackle because Lyle Collins was out. He was a dominant right tackle for the first 5 or 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Now, they're obviously committed to Lyle Collins because Steele was either a free agent or a late-round pick, I forget. But so Collins came back, and it's not all on him, but I'm just saying there seemed to be a pretty clear delineation just when you watch the tape that the run game started to disintegrate a little bit. Because the first 5-6 weeks, they were averaging 6-7 yards on first down.
They're unstoppable,
Their run game was just absolutely dominant.
Yeah.
And it's really just totally dried up.
The balance has changed to me.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that you see when you watch the tape. The balance has changed, and that has to do with the run game.
Yep.
When you don't have that power punch with Zeke Elliott, it makes it a lot harder to just sit back and pass the ball. I don't care how great your receivers are. To sit back and pass it as much as they like to lately is going to be tough. That's just the nature of the beast. And if a guy's not, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you look at Zeke Elliott's numbers from the first 3 years of his career and look at them now, I don't like to just judge a guy by numbers. Obviously, they only tell somewhat of a story. But as Greg mentioned, that second-level burst that he used to have.
That's from tape study.
I know. The second-level burst.
The numbers reflect what the film shows.
Sure.
Right.
It's staggering. And then, of course, you see what's going on with Christian McCaffrey, and since signing the big deal, it's kind of and Todd Gurley
attrition
being
rate
the first to really
bad.
show that sharp decline a couple of years ago. Starting to hurt running backs again. They were starting to get back on the rise as far as getting paid, and now you see what happens, and you wonder how the league's going to assess that.
Well, Zeke has always been questionable. Should I pay him or not?
Right.
Oh,
That's always been so because of
right.
his off the field. Right. That's a guy that you look at it and you say, hey, should I pay this guy or not? But I'm definitely not paying him as much as Jerry paid him, no matter how great he was, just because off field.
Here's the situation on that on Zeke's contract. After 22 next season, there's no guaranteed money left. Pollard's contract expires after 22 as well. So they may have a new starting running back at 23. And to me,
He's a better player right now.
Dak works really well off a really good run game. It just there's something going on with that.
And that's why he came into the league.
Yeah.
Remember, he was a starter. Zeke, let's see, what was his last great year?
It was his third year. He led the NFL in rushing in his first, second, and third year. And he was at third year was at 98.5. Year 3 for him. So what was that? That was
Are you pulling it up?
Yeah,
3
we'll
years
go
ago,
back.
I believe.
Yeah.
Because obviously Dak came into the league where the team was built a little differently. He was not the driving force. He played extremely well, but within a certain concept.
Right.
First season, 1631. Third season, 1434. Both led the NFL.
What was this last?
Last really good year was 19. 1357 was really good.
2019.
Yes, 2019. Last year was not as good.
And Dak,
way down.
last year you can't really evaluate because
he didn't play.
He played 4.5 games.
Right.
Yeah.
And he balled in those
made it
4
harder.
years.
He was phenomenal though in those 4.5 games.
Sure.
But yeah, the run game this year has really not been a factor since about week 6.
Makes you wonder, as they go into the playoffs, are they still as dangerous as they once looked, the Dallas Cowboys? We will
They can
find
get turnovers.
There you go.
They can get
Check out
turnovers.
our
That's a
friends
great point, yeah.
at PHLSportsNation.com. They're enhancing the fans' experience with their coverage of all Philadelphia sports teams. For the fan, by the fan is their motto, so make sure you're checking out all their great work on PHLSportsNation.com and on Twitter at PHL Sports Nation. Before we kind of get into the end of the show, I did want to bring up Nick Sirianni a little bit. Obviously, they left Las Vegas 7 or 8 weeks ago, and things could not be worse. 33-22 loss. The next day, Nick Sirianni talked about the flowering and the fertilization and showed the team a flower and the growth, and it became such a negative point for him. And by the way, one thing I like about Nick, it's not like he's unaware. He may never talk about these things, but in the press conference this week, he said, I love the fans. You know, they'll let me know if I'm doing a good job or bad job, or if my analogies about flowers really stink. So he knows what's going on, and he's taken, since day one, since his first introductory press conference, he's taken a lot from the fan base, and he has persevered.
See, it's funny you say that, because I heard, it might have been Joe Banner who said this, where Joe Banner said that he thought Sirianni has done a phenomenal job, because you rarely see an offense change so dramatically in the middle of the season.
Yes.
I'm going to give you my pointless point of view on that.
Pointless point of view?
As Billy Joel once said in a song.
If there's one thing this show is known for, Greg.
Yeah. I personally believe, there's no way to know this, I've never met Nick Sirianni, by the way, so, and even if I did meet him and know him, he wouldn't tell me this. I think they started the season the way they did to find out if Jalen Hurts could throw the ball and be the driving force of the offense as a passer. I thought that was all calculated.
Yeah, okay? I agree.
And then in their mind, based on the record and the results, they said either that he can't do it or he's not ready to do it.
Right.
But clearly it wasn't happening.
Right.
So I think that the changeover was calculated and planned. I don't think it was wake up on Monday morning after week 7 or 8 and say, oh, now I think I need to change something.
Yeah.
I personally think it was calculated and planned.
Yes.
If it worked, great, they would have continued to do it. But I personally think it was all calculated and
The
planned.
great question that we'll never know, and he would never, did they think when they changed it, when they said we need to make a change, I agree with you, we need to change, did they think over the next 9 games that they would be able to go 7-2?
No, that you don't know.
That's the amazing
That you
part,
don't
right?
know.
Right. Had no
Obviously,
idea.
you don't know that for sure.
Yeah.
But I think that it was all calculated, pre-planned, and it wasn't, oh, you know what, we need to change. I think that was always there.
Right. Jay, you've met them. You've met him personally, so you've had a chance to talk to Nick. I remember you said you left with some pretty positive impressions. What you're seeing now, the way the team kind of stuck with him through thick and thin, is it the same even if they didn't go 7-2? Or do you think the team is really liking what he's selling right now because they're winning?
Oh, winning is always the key factor, right? That no one would be buying it because, especially on defense, when you got like Fletcher Cox who's having a down year, and some of those guys that are not loving their roles, Josh Sweat, not loving their roles. So when you start losing, all of that compounds, and there begins to be fires everywhere. But when you start winning, those guys that may not love their role, they're content because you're winning.
Right. Like Fletch has not really talked about playing the 4-eye a whole lot.
Yeah, just not. Just because you're winning, you kind of put those things out naturally because it's not a good look or taste for anybody to go out and complain about coaching or anything else and you guys are winning. So I think that he's done a really good job, like Greg said, of adapting this year. And I do believe that. I've always said what Greg said is like this was the Jalen Hurts trial year. Let's see if he is the guy that can go out and pass the ball 30 times. They said, oh, he may not be that guy yet. Let's change. Right. And they did.
Right. Adam, do you feel like we're in fact-finding mode about him and the coaching staff, and that it's been hard to really figure out who they are?
Well, in terms of, we know what the offensive identity is, but in terms of the head coach,
yeah, more like the
I would say that they've learned a lot about it. I think anyone who's evaluating the owner, the general manager, I think they know he's been adaptable, which is really important. I don't know if I necessarily agree with Greg that I think you see what the offense was looking like with the quarterback throwing the ball too much. It just wasn't working.
Sure.
But to be able to, the willingness to do that is something that's key because most coaches, they come up with a philosophy, they don't change. They're very stubborn. The coaches that I'm pretty close with.
But that's my point is I don't think it was a change in the sense that you're talking about it. I think it was planned. Because don't forget who Sirianni's been with as a coach in the NFL from a quarterback perspective. He's never been with a quarterback like Jalen Hurts.
Right.
He's talked about that. Yeah. Sure, he talked about that. But it wasn't working. It clearly wasn't working. Now,
And his background would also lead you to believe that he would think that the quarterback needs to be a guy who could throw it really well 35, 40 times a game by choice in order for you to reach the mountaintop.
Sure.
But
So
let me ask you this question. The four of us were at training camp, I believe.
Yes.
I know I saw you guys there. It seemed to me they're going to be a passing offense. Just being there, it's not like I'm charting every play, but just based on structure and things that we're seeing, the concepts, I'm like, all right, this might be a team that's going to throw the ball more than they're going to run it. And the early part of the season would suggest that was the case.
Well, also training camp is basically a passing camp. I mean, they
Sure.
don't run.
because you can't really hit people. And
No, right. But again, if you look at his background, this is what you're talking about. It looks, my feeling was they would be more of a passing offense than running. And the early part of the season, they were.
Which I think is what, in an ideal world, he would like it to be. But he
I
looked
would
at his
agree with that.
talent.
I would agree with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
But I think it's more, it just wasn't working. You tried it, and it didn't work.
No
You don't just
question.
keep doing it.
Well,
you
of
have to
course.
change. Now, this drastic, I think he also saw, which we didn't mention, and it's a big part of it, their offensive line could handle it. There was, as you said it, I heard you say it somewhere, I think you might have said it on our show yesterday on Sirius XM. You said right now there's no, now obviously last week it wasn't as good, but you thought it was maybe the best offensive line job blocking for the run at some point.
You mean for the
Eagles,
this
yeah.
season
This
overall?
season,
Yeah.
yes. Yeah.
They're leading
Yeah,
the league in rush.
and I think that on the left side of the O-line, that Dickerson and Mailata together in the run game have been as good a left guard, left tackle tandem in the run game.
So when you're
but-
blocking that well, why wouldn't you stick with it? It worked.
Of course.
Yeah.
But see, Sirianni, don't forget where he's been before, and also that means he's evaluating quarterbacks coming out of the draft. So he evaluated Jalen Hurts. He's not going to tell you what his evaluation was. There's no
Right.
reason for him to do that. It's
Right.
unnecessary.
Right.
But
Yes.
But my guess is, based on his background, that he would not have had Jalen Hurts if he had to make a list for whatever team he was. He was with Indianapolis at the time, I
Yep,
believe.
yep.
Yeah.
That Hurts would not have been a second-round pick on Sirianni's board.
I would bet
Guess
the house
that
on
as
that.
well.
Yeah.
I would agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Because
All
we
right.
know that. Jeff
Yeah.
and I, when we were all watching the draft, like, who did they just take in the second round? We were like, oh my God, we got to
Right.
find out where teams were on him, and we got mostly third and fourth round grades.
Right.
All right. Save this stuff for next week. We
Okay.
got a whole other show. We got some really good stuff.
We didn't know where we were
got
going.
more-
This
we
is
got
really
more of
good.
this.
Yeah. This is
All
good.
right. We know that the Eagles love winning. They won more than anybody else. You can be a winner too using Deal Dash. It's the online shopping platform that's actually fun. Deal Dash is the longest running penny auction website and app around. We've seen a car go for $900, a brand new TV less than $2. So don't be a loser. Stop paying full retail price. Get on Deal Dash. Go to DealDash.com or download the app. Use the promo code ITB for a special offer for some bonus free bids. We're going to get into the part of the show that we do best here. We'll give you our players of the game for this unbelievably competitive game between the Eagles and the Cowboys. Of course, if you want to get an advantage over your sportsbook, you got to download BetQL, the only app you'll need to make smart bets. They got a computer model that scans over 350,000 unique bets a year to give you a best bet recommendation for every game across all major sports and the reason why you should place the bet. Their model covers spreads, over-unders, player prop bets, and if you want to ditch the model, just use their research tools. It's got sharp data, line movement, team summaries, lineup and injury breaking news, even a leaderboard to track your success. So go to the App Store or Google Play Store now to download BetQL. You can also go to the website try.betql.co/ITB to get started now. Just enter that promo code ITB to get 25% off their subscription offerings. All right, fellas, let's give it our player of the game. That's such a big, crucial game. Let's just fly through this. Jason, who's the player of the game today?
Gardner Minshew.
Gardner Minshew. Probably going to start, probably going to play a lot.
Yeah.
Probably going to have some good stats today.
Ron Jaworski.
Ron
George,
Jaworski.
really?
Ron
At
Jaworski.
70, I think he's
You
almost
know what?
70 now.
He's got a better
He
chance
is.
of being player of the game today than Jalen Hurts. I'll tell you that.
I agree with you.
Or
That I
at least
agree with.
equal.
I'm going to go Gainwell, Kenneth Gainwell.
Kenny Gainwell
Yep,
should
yep.
see the ball a lot today. Adam, who's player of the game?
Cooper Rush.
Cooper Rush, the Cowboys quarterback.
Yes, because he's going to play a lot tonight. Now, I will tell you, at least assume he would. Is Ben DiNucci still in the practice squad?
No, I think he's with somebody else's practice squad now, if I'm not
Well,
mistaken.
if it's Cooper Rush playing a lot tonight, he will tear it up against the Eagles guys like Tay Allen and the other backups who would ordinarily not play.
Well, I
Big
agree
fan of
with
Cooper Rush, huh?
I was blown away with the way he played against Minnesota. That Sunday night game, I was surprised.
Won that game in Minnesota.
And I
if
was
remember
going
correct,
against him
right?
on fantasy. I had the Viking defense. I'm like, what? You can't be serious. Wow.
Well,
he played really
gonna,
well that game.
I'm going to play off you. If he has a big game, that means my guy has a big game, and that's wide receiver Noah Brown.
oh
Thought,
yeah,
why
Noah
not?
Brown.
Noah
Yeah.
Brown having a big game today.
What if Fehoko will play
Out of
tonight?
Penn State.
Greg, how about Fehoko?
Ohio State,
No, not
excuse
Penn
me.
State.
Ohio
State.
State.
Yeah.
Ohio State.
How about
Come
our
on
guy
now.
Simi Fehoko?
From Stanford.
Yeah, big guy.
Liked his tape coming out.
Yeah.
Big and can run.
If you want to put some money on this game here at Rivers Casino or on the Bet Rivers app, the Cowboys are favored by 4. The over-under is 45. Of course, Sundays are made for football at Rivers Casino. Every Sunday from now till the end of the season, you can enjoy $7 food specials in Jack's Bar and Grill, half-price gourmet burgers at Hugo's Chop House, drink specials, and more. And then also, when the Birds score, you score. When you're actively planning with a Rush Rewards card in their Bird's Nest pit in front of the sportsbook. Remember, you can be a winner at Rivers Casino Philadelphia, where Philly loves a winner. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Greg, who wins today?
I think I picked the Eagles, didn't I?
You did. Do you remember the score?
Yeah.
What?
I don't remember.
2017.
There
you said
you go.
yes, and then you didn't remember.
Oh, man, we got the same.
Yep, Greg's got the Eagles winning 20-17. Jason, who wins?
Eagles, 2017.
How about that? Great minds think alike. All right. Adam, who wins?
My Eagles Cowboys preseason score, it's week 18, first time ever, is Cowpokes 16, Eagles 13.
All right. I have the Cowboys winning. For the first, you know how much I love the high-scoring games, so this was like the first opportunity in 10 weeks to do
my
it.
goodness
I
gracious.
say Cowboys 28, Eagles
In the
24.
preseason?
This is for the record, too. I think we're all tied, right?
Yeah. Well, everybody's 9-6, and I was trying to figure out why is there only 15
it's gonna be
games.
me and
I
Greg.
forgot we didn't have a week 1.
Oh,
we had
the
some technical difficulties that week.
Fans, our people on YouTube, they don't think you're allowed to pick against.
Oh,
since
yeah,
you
you're not allowed to pick against the
No,
Eagles.
since you pick against the Eagles, but yet you still had a winning record. Your record coming into last week was better than ours. Now we're all tied.
That's right. I put it on the line and I lost, so I guess that's
Now,
the price I pay.
Greg wants to know. He asked me if he wins, does he get his contract renewed?
At a lesser rate, yes.
Okay.
All right, remember, before you put your money down on the Bet Rivers app or here at Rivers Casino Philadelphia, get all those statistical trends and data at BetQL. Big thanks to Rivers Casino and Sportsbook, Sky Motor Cars, BetQL, the teams at Rebel Hill and Public Square. Remember to go to Sky Motor Cars Instagram right after we're done. You can get a chance to win tickets to today's game. Remember to make sure you're listening out for the Inside the Birds podcast, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 6 a.m., Q&A show Thursday at 6 a.m., and all the coverage on InsideTheBirds.com immediately after the game and throughout the week. Have a great night. We'll see you again next week.